Okay, I'm going to adjourn the special meeting we held at 6:30 for the leaf blower demonstration, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our regular city council meeting of July 22nd. Anyone wishing to speak on an item that's on the agenda, we request that you fill out a speaker's card, turn it into our city clerk. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Roll call.
Councilmember Blatz.
Here.
Councilmember Clapp. Present. Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith. Here. Mayor Strobel.
Present. Mayor Pro Tem Smith will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everyone rise, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and before we do our first presentation, I'd like to welcome Sergeant Rick Harwood. He's sitting in for Chief Kinney this evening. Welcome. I just didn't want to overlook you, and I'm real good about doing that. All right. Next, we have a presentation, Ventura County Fair poster, and we have someone here to present the poster. Jenny Rockefeller. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, this is the 2014 contest winner. It was designed by a girl named Cheney Hang.
Do you have the microphone?
Oh, yeah. This is the 2014 contest winner. It was designed by a 15-year-old girl from Ventura named Cheney Hang. And yeah, the theme for this year is Country Fair with Ocean Air. And so some of the special admissions days we have is Dollar Day on July 30th. We have Carnival Wristband Days on July 31st, August 4th, August 5th, and August 7th. We have Feed the Need, Fair Cares for Food Drive. If you purchase an adult admission ticket and bring 5 cans of food for food share before 5 p.m., you get a free return fair ticket. We have Youth Day on Friday, August 1st. All fair visitors 12 years of age or younger are admitted free. Seniors and Persons with Disabilities Day on August 5th, and $3 before 3 Day, and finally, and that is on August 6th, and finally, Military Appreciation Day, which is on August 7th. We also have free parking and free shuttles located around town, such as the County Government Center, Ventura High School, Pacific View Mall, Ventura Unified School District on Stanley Avenue, and the Oxnard Performing Center. There's also paid parking with the free shuttle at the Marriott Ventura Beach and the State Beach on Harbor Boulevard.
Our grandstand entertainment for this year is motorsports on Wednesday, and our concerts and rodeos begin on Thursday with the Beach Boys, then followed by Little Big Town, The Spinners, Larry Hernandez, Bare Naked Ladies, Tony Orlando, Deep Purple, Seether, Jake Owen, Creedence Clearwater, and finally the 2 days of PRCA Rodeo.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the poster is beautiful.
We have free tickets for you all, the city council members, and you also get our fair poster. Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
I just have a question. Do you guys have all this on your website?
We do.
Okay, so the public at home could.
Yes.
VenturaCountyFair.org. Thank you.
I actually was going to pass these down to Rhonda. Okay, and I managed to overlook something. I didn't check our public comments, and we do have a speaker card for public comment. Elena Daly. Elena Daly. Is she here?
Yes.
Oh, there you are.
soon as I start talking, the timer goes on. Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Strobel and council members. My name is Ilana Daly, and I live at 1001 Grandview Avenue in the Ojai city limits. I'm running for Ojai Unified School Board in the current election, and I come to you today with both a problem and a proposed solution. My request is to see this topic added to the City Council agenda for the next meeting. I ask you to imagine walking up Shelf Road from Signal Street, walking at a rather fast pace with 2 dogs on a lead and your friend beside you. As you hike the Shelf Road Trail around a corner, you see a woman also with 2 dogs. One is visibly off leash. It happens to be a pit bull. As you look, you stop. In a moment, off the leash, the off-leash dog is on top of your leash dog, attacking it mercilessly. Your instinct is to kick and scream at the dog, and you do. Your friend straddles the attacking dog and reaches down to grab the collar. Successfully, your friend pulls the attacking off-leash, out-of-control dog off your dog and brings the attacking dog to the owner. In a split second, the dog slips out of the collar and returns to attack again. The owner has done nothing to engage the dog at this point. Success. The dogs are separated and both parties turn around and walk away. This is a condensed version of what really happened Thursday, July 17th at approximately 6 a.m. in an area of Shelf Road that is within the Ojai jurisdiction. In an effort to find the owner, a post was placed on Ojai Community Network on Facebook. As of Sunday, July 21st, there were over 120 posts regarding this occurrence and many others. Through the post, the owner was found. My friend and I went to her home and requested reimbursement for the $425 vet bill. And what we were told was that the dog was going to be put to sleep. This was not the first incident with this unleashed dog. The entire event could have been avoided. The scene is all too familiar to many residents in Ojai. Of the 120 posts and 13 pages of commentary, everyone complained that the leash laws were not being obeyed or enforced strictly on the bike trail, on Highway 33, Shelf Road, local parks, Ojai Land Conservancy, city streets, downtown, and our beloved Libby Park. After it was removed, I posted that I would be here tonight to discuss a solution. Over 30 additional comments were posted. On March 14th, Mike Deering presented to the City Council and sent letters on the issue. This is not the only public safety issue concerning dogs in the Ojai Valley. I'll list them. A lack of enforcement of leash laws, lack of poop bags in parks and public places, unlicensed dogs, unleashed dogs roaming and defecating on public buildings like the post office in downtown. My proposal is to create a volunteer citizens coalition made up of training through the Citizens Academy and the Animal Services Department. Let these trained...
Finish up, please.
Let the trained concerned citizens be provided a citation book so they can issue citations. So I ask you today to add this to your agenda for your next City Council meeting so we can address this concern. And I will have plenty of people here to support the issue.
Thank you. Under public comment, William Ulrich.
Good evening. William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. As you should know, Golden State Water allowed our water system to experience a blowout on an 8-inch main on Highway 150 in front of Ojai Playhouse on Sunday. Ojai Playhouse has now been red tagged, preventing any access for use by the public, and there will not be any movies for quite some time. Assuming the mold issue can be overcome, the washing effect of water around the foundation may result in a much larger issue of a structural nature requiring a determination of the foundation soil competency by a suitable soils engineer. The water level exceeded 31 inches at the emergency exit door down by the screen. Has the city received a credible report from Golden State on the status of the overall city water system? Golden State Water and Ventura County Fire Department at a previous meeting spent considerable efforts to deny their individual responsibilities for hydrant flow tests. What is the status of the hydrant flow tests? Have any been occurred? It is my understanding that the Ventura County Fire Department can order hydrant flow tests under the fire department's health and safety police powers. I don't believe that's been affected. In 2010, Golden State Water sought what we are experiencing now as a current rate increase. Councilwoman Clapp and City Manager Clark were to give testimony before an administrative law judge related to that application for rate increase. It appears that Ms. Clapp and Mr. Clark were unable to do so due to not having their testimony in writing as required. Apparently that information did not enter into someone's database before they made the trip. Both Mr. Clark and Ms. Clapp promised to appear before the Staff Public Utilities Commission to express the city's position on Golden State Water's requested rate increase. Did this occur? The rate increase went through. When will the city manager and the city council vindicate the interests of the city's water ratepayers? Golden State Water will charge the ratepayers for the loss of water experienced in the Sunday blowout and all related costs, ultimately because they are guaranteed a 5 to 7% capitalization cost on all expenses. The city needs to weigh in on the Golden State Water matter, and it's just getting worse. At this point, we have no reassurance of a viable fire water system. That's unconscionable. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards I have for
Jenny Rockefeller?
Ginny. That was the fair.
No, she's our representative.
Oh, sorry. Ginny Rockefeller.
Good evening to the council and to the mayors. Yes, I'm Jenny Rockefeller. I am your City of Ojai, Ventura County Area Agency on Aging representative. And I've been busy this past year and will be again after our August break, making sure that the concerns of the seniors of the cities of Ojai and surrounding areas are well addressed. Two things I wanted to give you tonight. I've just finished handing out coupon books that will serve the seniors of the county here at our farmers market. Every year, the California Department of Agriculture gets a grant to hand out $20 in coupons books to seniors who are needy, and they're able to use them in $2 increments to redeem them for fruits, vegetables, and honey at our farmers market or any of the farmers markets inside our county. So over the last 2 Sundays, I gave away $3,000 worth of coupons to seniors right here in Ojai, which will make sure that they are all eating fresh fruits and vegetables and staying healthy. For the upcoming year, I belong to 2 committees. One is health issues, and we're especially concerned that seniors eat healthy so that in the event of some chronic problems that they may have, they're addressed as well as through medicine, but also nutrition. And they've put together a Your Plate placemat, which they're going to put out at Help of Ojai's for their congregate meal sites, and it gives a proper proportion on a 9-inch plate of how much would be the right amount to eat for fruits, vegetables, grains, and proteins, also with recipes included that fit one person, because so many of our seniors do live alone. And the other committee that I'm on is called Optimal Aging. And this is brand new. We're struggling to decide what is it about the council members on the Area Agency and Aging Council, who are all volunteers, and some of them go into the 90th year. What has kept them so viable that they're able to volunteer? So we're aiming at the boomers and pre-boomers and millennials to get them to live a healthier lifestyle, eat better, and have a positive outlook on aging so that their lives as they age will become more rewarding, more creative. For the council and for the public at large, I'm about to give Rhonda some cards that we have laminated that it says, serving seniors and their caregivers. Got questions? Call us, Area Agency on Aging. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Now, that really is the last card I have on public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on an issue not on the agenda? Okay, our next item is the consent calendar.
We have a presentation by Chief Plott.
I'm just going to give it up here. Chief?
I'll help you, honey. You want me to cue you?
Madam Mayor, distinguished members of the council, Norm Plott, Division Chief for Ventura County Fire Department. Wanted to come to the council today to give an update on the request of the council on the June 10th meeting regarding the hydrant inspection and the coordination with Golden State on the hydrant flow test. So back in after the council meeting on June 10th, later in the month, fire department prevention officers went at Golden State, met with them, mapped out an area that would best show the flow test within the grids within the Golden State water distribution system within the city of Ojai. Let's see here, to move forward. At that meeting, there was a comment made about the hydrants and their ability to deliver service. In the council meeting, we, at that council meeting, decided and worked with council to come up with a plan to flow test the 14 hydrants and have engine companies go back out to the hydrants within the system and do a boots on the ground test of all the hydrants, open up all the valves, and make sure that the hydrants were in working order. Subsequent to the meeting, we did receive a letter from Golden State addressing the issues of the drought and the sensitivity to potential to the residents if we was to squirt test that many hydrants, and that it could cause issues with water clarity and that sort of thing. So we met and decided to modify our hydrant testing somewhat, where we didn't flow each hydrant for 10 seconds due to the drought and some concerns outlined in the letter. So 14 hydrants were identified, specific hydrants chosen by his representatives from the system throughout the city. Tests were monitored by our fire prevention staff. I went out along with Rob Clark when we got started with Golden State personnel to look at the testing procedures. This hydrant here is over on Country Club, which was the newest line that they upgraded within the system that hadn't been flowed. And we worked with the gentleman on the right as fire prevention staff, and the gentleman turning the hydrant is Golden State staff. And so we simply were there to observe and to monitor both the static and residual pressures that were obtained during the 14 hydrant flow test. This hydrant is up on Foothill Road. So, you know, we went all over the city to make sure that we had a good cross-section of the area of the distribution system within Golden State's water delivery in Ojai. Public and district expects prompt and inspection of the Golden State hydrants within the city. Specific tests were implemented by the fire station personnel. We came up with a procedure. These are basically the procedures. We want to confirm the location of the hydrants. We want to inspect the hydrants and ensure that they can be, the caps can be removed, prepare the hydrant discharge valves. We wanted to make sure that we open both the 2.5 and the 4-inch. Those are the two openings that are on every hydrant, with the exception of a wharf head type hydrant. We gave special instructions to make sure our hydrants were open very slowly, so not to create a water hammer. And some other items in here with station personnel. Documentation was important, that they documented each and every check on the Form 100, and provide a list to Golden State of any of the areas that needed to be corrected. This is basically what we did was, we hooked up a fire department valve so that when we opened up the 2.5-inch discharge, after it was shut, we could actually bleed the hydrant off so that there wasn't residual water within the caps, which could rust and cause the corrosion on the hydrants. And that's the system that we use for the steamer connection, so that you could open up the hydrant valve fully and then let the pressure off so that you could once again drain the steamer connections. As a result, we had boots on the ground. We inspected 227 hydrants. The only hydrants they didn't inspect were the 14 that were flow tested. Numerous benefits are observed. Personnel noted hydrants that were new, not on our present AVL system, upgraded or moved or removed. So we added changes to our AVL so that the AVL that firefighters have on their engines reflected the correct location of the hydrants. And repair requests were submitted. Some of the things we found, there was some poor access due to foliage and obstacles of encroachment, which we cleared. Some were too low to the ground where we took a shovel and removed so that the hydrant valves in the event of a fire could be opened easily. We found some hydrants that were leaking. We found some stems that the valves were bent, and some were difficult to open. On a lot of the ones that are difficult to open, we did lube them so that you could get them off in the event of a fire. Total number of repair notices that will be sent into Golden State are 20. We brought in additional resources. I brought in engine companies from the Santa Paula and the Upper Ojai station a couple days to assist with the project so that we could complete this in a timely manner with council's request before July 31st. Also during this time is our weed abatement season, where we're actually going out and checking lots for the wildland issues and the time deadlines for that. So crews, like I say, crews got on it, boots on the ground to make sure that we complied with the council's recommendations, and hopefully let everybody know that the hydrants valves would be able to be open, the caps would be able to come off, and that there was some water in each of the hydrants. We invested about 240 staff hours for the project, and that doesn't include the hydrant flushing. I'd be glad to answer any questions for this or any of the events of Sunday as well.
Madam Mayor, of the 20 hydrants, you're sending out repair notices to Golden State. When are those going out, and how much time do they have to repair the hydrants?
Those are being prepared. They might have been delivered. I don't have that information right now, but there'll be a Form 105s filled out so that each hydrant has a number. So the number and then the cause for the damage or what was wrong with the hydrant is noted on that, so that they have the location, the hydrant number, and so they can go back and fix it. The other thing that we have, there was 15 hydrants that were still left to do on Ojai Avenue. And with the events of Sunday, I've asked staff to cease and desist on the Ojai Avenue hydrants, and I've spoken with Golden State Water to have their staff do the remaining 15 hydrants along Ojai Avenue.
And how much time do they have to repair? Is there a time limit in which they're supposed to repair them? Or is it left open?
Prudent action is usually within 30 days of notice.
Is there going to be follow-up to make sure it's done?
Yes, there will be.
Any other questions, comments?
Madam Mayor, do you have a report of the results of all the testing that was done?
As of the council's direction, that is up to Golden State to provide the results of their calculations, and we do know what the static and residual pressures were at the time. So they're by council order to come back with a report to you by July 31st. So okay. Being the 21st, I would say that should be into you within 10 days.
All right, and you have the numbers so that we can double check theirs?
We have notes on what was taken at each of the hydrants. Yes, we do.
All right, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I do have a question. Well, thank you first of all for jumping on this and following through. I just have a question about protocol. Do you guys have any type of timeline and how often you're going to be communicating with Golden State in regards to testing, inspecting, so forth, the fire hydrants?
I think what we're going to do based on, this year is that we're going to follow the same protocols for next year in 2015 with boots on the ground and opening up in similar fashion so that we know that they're all in working order. As far as the flow test, we would want to follow up so that we're continuing to flow and test the hydrants, maybe a different 14 next year, so that we're continuing to test that. The only issue is everybody's sensitive to the water, and we do flush a lot of water when we do the tests.
Madam Mayor, just one more thing. Chief, as you're well aware, this is an extremely important situation and matter for for our city to know that our fire hydrants are working correctly. Does the fire department, does the fire district have any kind of a procedural regulation or a guideline as to how often and you're supposed to have hydrants with any jurisdiction tested?
Yeah, they're supposed to flow a certain amount of hydrants every 5 years, or when a request comes for new construction. And in some of the busier areas, with the amount of requests that come in for construction, it basically hits the numbers that need to be flowed. But it's pretty clear that there has been a backlog of flow testing, based on the records that were presented to council. So we would strongly recommend that Golden State continues their flow testing yearly, so that the system is tested and that the distribution system is intact and will provide the required fire flows.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm extremely impressed as how quickly you were able to react to the council's requests. As I said, it's very important for our community, so thank you very much.
Pleasure. Any other questions?
Thank you for your responsiveness to this issue. You've been to almost every council meeting with an update, and that keeps the council informed and it keeps the citizens informed. Hopefully they'll understand that we're doing the best we can, and I appreciate you coming in and giving us updates.
Yeah, and we work, obviously on the ground on Sunday as well for the break on Ojai Avenue. And some of the things that we did bring an extra water tender. We had it at the Ojai station in the event we had another break or issue. There was 4 hydrants that were shut down due to the break, isolated within that grid. And we were very concerned about the water and worked with Golden State to make sure that hydrants were bagged and tagged, the ones that were not operative, and that we had a backup system with a water tender, and we had another one available in Ventura City if we needed it. So we had 2 water tenders that we could call on in the event that there was some kind of disruption.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm fine. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a comment to Mr. Clark. I really think it's important that we hold Golden State to updating us annually on the hydrant situation. And I really think we have to hold them to seeing how responsive the fire district was to our request. If Golden State doesn't have that report back to us by July 31st, I think we immediately need to make a press release announcing that they haven't done what the council asked. Secondly, I don't want to hear the excuse of anything of this broken line that they couldn't give us our report. They should be mutually exclusive. And then the other thing is that once we get that report, I think it's got to immediately be put on the website. It ought to be immediately released to the public, even before we've had any chance really to look at it ourselves, or at least the same time, because I think it's very important with the fact that this information came to us as kind of a grassroots effort, particularly from Mr. McPherson. I want them to be able to get that information just as quickly as we get it.
I agree with that totally.
And Madam Mayor, and add to that, I want to make sure they repair them. Because it sounds like there's not any sort of legal requirement that they repair them within a certain length of time. So I'm concerned that they're going to be sent as repair notices, but they may not respond promptly to it as well. And we are entering into the dry season, or in the dry season.
Yeah.
And I'd like to comment. I'm disappointed, and if I'm in error, which I am often, please stand up and let me know. But I'm very disappointed that we had no one here from Golden State Water to address the council, to give us an update, to give us any information. Very disappointed with that. Okay, now, assuming I have not forgotten something else, next on the agenda is the consent calendar.
Madam Mayor, could I ask a question in regards to this agenda item that came up as a result of what you just said?
The presentation by the fire chief?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should be able to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick question. Can we get a list, and by the way, thank you very much. Can we get a list of where those 20 hydrants are located? Okay, because if it's in front of my house,
Address the
30
council.
days is a long time. Thank you.
May? Just to follow up on the gentleman's question, is that the repair notices mean that there's corrections to be made. It doesn't mean that the hydrant is out of service. So, might have we noticed that some of the stems were bent. It might have a leaking packing valve. Items that need to be addressed. So I just want to make clarity that we're not saying that the 20 hydrants are out of service. Those 20 hydrants need repair that we couldn't mitigate in the field. So if it was something we could mitigate in the field, we did it. If there were issues that needed, either the hydrant needs to be replaced, but they were in working order enough to where if we had to use them, we could use them. But 20 of them did need maintenance past our ability to service them.
Madam Mayor, one other question. Did you run across any of the hydrants that just totally would not be able to be used if there was a fire?
They did not report that back to me. If it was, they would have taken. I know the crews that were involved, and they would have taken action.
Okay.
There's no doubt. If they felt as though the main purpose for the engine companies to be out there is that to make sure that in the event of a fire, that those hydrants were accessible, they could get the caps off, and they could open up the valves freely, both on the 2.5 and the steamer connection.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional comments, questions? Consent calendar.
Madam Mayor, if no council members have any thing they'd like to have pulled, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Roll call?
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. The next item on our agenda is the discussion item on leaf blower ordinance. Mr. Clark?
Madam Mayor, at this time, I think I'll recuse myself.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. Mr. Grant will be making this presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Well, as I think a good part of the audience was here, and certainly all the council, we had the demonstration of the leaf blowers earlier. And this is an ongoing discussion related to the leaf blower ordinance that I think was started back in February by City Manager Rob Clark in discussion with a high attendance from the community, especially the landscaping community. And it's all about the leaf blower ordinance, about the sound levels and other pollution related to leaf blowers issues that have been coming up in the city. In March, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on here, May 29th, we did have a public outreach meeting, and we reached out to the landscaping community. We put advertisements in the newspaper, and we did have 30 people in attendance at this meeting, which we discussed. We had a demonstration similar to tonight to compare the quieter blowers along with the louder versions of the leaf blowers. We then went on to look at the table, which is in the administrative report tonight, and it compares some cities that we were able to easily get a copy of their ordinance and compare, and gave a pretty good range of options available to the council. That is attached to the administrative report, and we'll look at it in a second here on the slide. And based on that, the staff has come up with a recommendation which we could implement, which would be a kind of a hybrid of other existing ordinances out there in the community, in the state, and other cities, as well as what we already have on with our system, with our ordinance. So here's a table of the leaf blower ordinances around the state that we're easily able to take a look at, and were suggested by some other communities. So first in the column there is City of Ojai, and you can see under the general category, we don't allow leaf blowers to run at all on holidays. And I guess we did put it in there, but they're actually not allowed to run on Sunday either. The residential, if you go down the table under residential, our city does not allow in residential areas gas blowers to be run at all, electric only, and that's 8 to 5 Monday through Saturday. In commercial areas, you can run gas or electric leaf blowers 8 to 5 Monday through Friday and Saturday, and that must be, as shown there, it's a little hard to see. I think it's 150 feet from residential, schools, and hospitals. In comparison, the city of Santa Barbara has an outright ban on gas. They say no gas blowers, period. You're allowed to use electric blowers. Their regulation requires 65 decibel max, and as we showed in the demonstration beforehand, that 65 decibels is a significant decrease from what a lot of blowers available on the market are. And they do require an annual certification sticker, so that's a way to confirm that the unit has not been modified and it does meet the requirements of their ordinance. In residential areas, they're allowed to run them 8 to 5 Monday through Saturday. Commercial areas are anytime, if they have to make sure they're outside of 250 foot of residential areas. And otherwise, they have special allowances for City Parks and Recreation to run them on weekdays from 7 to 9 o'clock. The city of Burlingame, which is just south of the San Francisco airport up in the Bay Area, has an interesting ordinance, and they require 65 decibel max blowers with certification stickers, and it's required for commercial but not residential. And in residential areas, they say that they really have 4 zones. They've broken the whole city into 4 areas, and they have 1 day allowed per week for each zone. And it's a unique way to handle it, but their commercial industrial zones are allowed outside of that. It's just the residential areas will do 1 day per week. And then the residents also get the weekends, the Saturday and Sunday, as hours shown. The city of Santa Monica is an outright ban on blowers. It doesn't matter electric or gas, they're just banned outright. The town of Tiburon is no gas blowers, so similar to what we have, and their electrics are allowed 9 to 4. I think I can't read my own writing, sorry there, but yeah, 9 to 4 any day except the holidays. Commercial electric is allowed 9 to 4 except the weekends and holidays, and then they have an exemption for their public works department. It's interesting, they also apply their ordinance to their hedge trimmers. They consider those to be an annoyance as well. So the basic options, I think the council's already heard over the last meeting, the city manager discussion back in February. These basic options are obviously still out there to the council or whatever else can be considered. An outright ban on leaf blowers is one option, or we could enforce our existing ordinance as a second option. Third would be to modify or replace our ordinance, which is being recommended by staff. Or nothing would be the last option, just to keep the ordinance as it is. I should mention that in our discussion with all these cities that have variations on these ordinances, they said for the first year or two they had significant enforcement issues trying to get the community in line with what the new ordinance was. And since then they backed off and they don't have much enforcement. It did take a significant amount of enforcement during that period of time. And for instance, the city of Santa Monica still has one enforcement person dedicated to this ban as well as stormwater issues. And they say just to monitor the community, and that enforcement is what works there. Most of the other communities, once they changed over to the low noise type blowers, that seemed to be pretty well understood. There was even some huge runs on the local distributors to get those low noise blowers. So here's a staff recommendation. And that would be it's a hybrid of these various ordinances that we looked into, and that we would require a green tag for the low noise leaf blowers. So in other words, for commercial operators only, they would all require to be stopped by at the city public works yard, for instance, and we would certify that it is a low noise blower. It's a 65 dB, decibels that is, or less. And most of these have them certified, and we've seen just even the demonstration tonight, they all seem to fall in line as long as the muffler is still on the blower and the equipment has not been modified, the blower and so on, they seem to meet that dB rating as expected. So we would green tag, most likely a sticker, maybe with a number on it and the city's emblem and so on, to make sure they aren't copied, and we put that on onto the blower. We would suggest that private operators not be required to go through that step for private residences and private individuals, and that only if there's a violation, if they were not abiding by the timing or the noise and so on, there was complaints, then they could be issued a few phases of some kind of a violation, maybe a fix-it ticket the first time, and maybe fines, escalating fines as they went through there with that recurring violations. And then the hours in the phase-out of the louder blowers, we'd recommend the low-noise blowers, to try to provide an incentive, have more hours. So they'd be able to operate from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 9 to 4 Saturday, not on Sundays or holidays. The louder blowers, in order to phase them out and try to be fair with people who have purchased them recently, because we've heard quite a few stories of that during these outreach meetings. And they go, most commercial ones are about $500 to $600 each, so there's a pretty fair investment for a landscaping outfit. In year one, have reduced hours compared to the low noise blowers, 9 to 3 Monday to Friday, 10 to 2 Saturday, and not Sunday holidays. And then year two, tighten up that time frame a little bit, and year three, ban it. This certainly could be moved in quicker. It could happen at any desire of the council. There's various restrictions. I mean, I think the key was that 65 decibel low blower approach, and to tag it, and how they're done with private versus public, private versus commercial. There's various restrictions that I think some people brought up out there. If they blow on soil or driveways or fields, there's a lot of dust that comes up, and I think that's one of the biggest complaints with blowers. And so there's restrictions, and the idea is that there's no, as mentioned here, no blowing in dirt fields, road shoulders, or loose dirt. You don't blow the debris into the street. The idea is not to blow debris and pollutants into the street that get washed down by storm water into the streams and so on. And that the blowers are all maintained in good condition. And that would require some periodic reinspection and retagging of the blowers, suggesting 3 years. And then we could have various levels of fix-it tickets and enforcement on ticketing. And then I think one of the important things that's brought up out there as well is that the dust and debris does not blow past the property line of whoever's using the blowers. And there would be exemptions for things like pavement repair. I think that's the city does it, but certainly everybody's driveway also gets blown off. And they use a higher power blower. I think in the industry they're called billy goats. It's kind of a walk-behind blower that really puts a lot of horsepower out and blows off the driveway and clears it so it can be easily resurfaced if it's a black top or a pavement repair. The city does the same thing with the potholes in the streets. And then we looked at operator training as well. I don't think we'd try to make it too difficult to pass the test, but the whole idea would be to, I think, some of the basic concepts. And I think Arizona has a statewide informational one-pager brochure in English and Spanish that just promotes good usage of the blowers to make sure people aren't trying to move piles of dirt with them, or trying to be aware of their neighbors' situation if their windows are open and if they're out having a picnic in the backyard and so on. And the emission standards, there are, California EPA has stepped in emission standards, which are being phased through all these small engines, and we could phase those in as well as part of the green tagging of these blowers. And then enforcement would be complaint driven. So that is the end of my presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions by council members to staff? Okay, I do have some speaker cards.
One question.
Greg?
And it's for Mr. Fletcher. Do we have any problem with a ban of the gas blowers in terms of a taking of property if we just ban it, if we don't do it over a period of time?
The amortization or period of time is always a recommended process, just to avoid any serious threat of a taking. we would, the idea is to allow someone to amortize the investments. I'd recommend some sort of financial analysis of how long it would take a business to amortize that cost. But 1 to 3 years is very often number used.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I do have several speaker cards. Randy Haney.
Hello, Randy Haney, 513 Pleasant Avenue, small business owner, landscape design build company, not necessarily a maintenance company. I wanted to talk to a couple things here. I wanted to talk to, first of all, the three issues that I see with blowers. One is education. That's the education of the user, when to use it, how to use it, where to use it. I think that's important, that anything that we do or anything that we're going to change or anything that we're going to implement, that be a part of it. I think we have to educate the people that have a complaint against it, how to complain properly, who to complain to, versus taking actions on their own part. So educating the users, educating the people that might be victims of the use. The other thing is responsibility. I think all the users of this equipment have to be held accountable and have to be responsible in how they use it, when they use it, those same principles. And I think that's important, and that if we get that across, I think is going to solve a lot of the issues that we have. And then I think the third thing I want to talk to is the respect. The respect of the fact that these gentlemen that use these blowers on a full-time basis, I would call them gardener caretakers. I would say that they're performing the gardening maintenance throughout the city, but they're also caretakers to the citizens that they actually are working for. Not only do they maintain their lawns, not only do they maintain their bushes, not only, that's just the first part of what they do. The second part is they take care of some of the elderly people. They take their trash cans out. They take care of their dogs and cats. The service that the maintenance operations provide in this city are tremendous. So anything that we do that has an adverse effect on them is going to adversely affect the citizens. So I just want to be clear on that. Education, responsibility, and respect. And I think if we can combine that in some type of an ordinance, that we're going to have some success. The things I want to speak to Greg's list, and one, I want to thank Greg for doing a great job and an outstanding job on putting together this whole package. I just think a couple things need to be a little tighter. For instance, I think every maintenance operation in the city of Ojai should be registered, should have a business license. I think that's I think that's just important. They become a member now. Now they bought in. I have a license. I don't do a whole lot of landscaping in Ojai. Most of my business is out of Ojai. But I have a business license to perform work here. 2, certification. Again, that goes back to the education. Let's set up a certification program using this business license money so that the people that are using this equipment are trained properly in it. So again, they just go hand in hand. Educate them, make them understand their role in our community, how important they are in our community. I think Greg had a 3-year ban, or working to a 3-year goal to ban all these high decibel blowers. Personally, I think it should be within a year. I think you can move right onto that as quick as you can, and I think every responsible owner of any piece of equipment in this community would see that that's a win-win. It's a win for them, and it's a win for the community. So I think that 3 years is, to me, is just a little too long. I think I probably, I still got a minute left, huh? Wow, I still have a lot more to do then. Again, I just can't emphasize that we need to educate the users We need to educate the public on what to do if they're impacted in a negative way by a user, that we get the user to understand his or her responsibility and how they fit in with the community. And the most important thing is that we have shared respect, one for the users and one for the community.
Okay, Randy, and I have a question for you. Are you saying that you agree with the ban on the gas-powered lawnmowers? Are you basically in agreement with the proposed?
No, I don't think we need to ban them. I think what we need to do is initiate that buying of all this power equipment and getting it all under that 65 decibel reading level.
Okay, so whether it's gas or electric, as long as the decimal is 65 or
lower.
Or lower?
Yes.
Okay, so not banning gas, not banning electric, just enforcing the decimal level.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
I remember when this first was initiated, what I thought was kind of interesting is that they wanted to ban blowers, but I could go out and buy a generator that generates just as much noise and then hook a blower that makes more noise to it. It was kind of like, it was stupid, to say it bluntly, but it just didn't make any sense. So I think we can come to some common cause here. And again, I think the most important thing is educating the users and educating someone that's impacted negatively with it, how to approach that person.
Okay.
You know, it just makes sense.
Madam Mayor, I have a question, Randy, and I know you're going over your time, but I respect your opinion, so I've got two questions. Mm-hmm. Number one, what is the benefit of having a leaf blower in terms of what they're doing? And second of all, why would it hurt if we just went back to what we did before we didn't have leaf blowers? From your standpoint, from what you do and what you see other people do, what is the benefit of the leaf blower, and what would happen if we just said, we're going to go back and do it the way we used to?
I think the first thing is blowers are cost effective. I think that when you have a large deciduous tree that is dropping leaves annually, if not, throughout the year, and you as a maintenance person have to either remove those leaves, the blower just is by far the easiest method. And I think there's some other maintenance people that can probably respond to that better than I can. However, I do know that it expedites that process. The other thing is there's nothing wrong with a clean city. I'm sorry, I just don't want to walk around a city that's just full of debris and dirty and grimy. It's not a turn on. I know we're kind of rural, but we are a city. And we should have some livable standards, and I think the blowers help us maintain that. Okay, if that answers the first part. The other part, I think that's a choice that someone could make. Do I want to blow my property off, or do I not want to blow my property off? And I think that's a consumer's choice. And we're just playing a part in that. Again, it still comes down to who wants to pay for that service.
Thank you.
And see if this appeals to the council. Ordinarily, we would listen to all of the speakers and hold our questions. But in case we have questions of a speaker, I think we should go ahead and ask the questions.
I have, I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. The incident of asthma in children is getting higher and higher all the time. Leaf blowers force rat feces, mouse feces, dog feces particles into the air. The leading cause of asthma in children is rat feces. Are we worried about having a very clean city in terms of what you look at, or are we worried about the increased cost of having asthma, a growing disease in children? I am sorry. I am against leaf blowers. That has increased the risk of children inhaling all these pollutants, dog feces, rat feces, squirrel feces. They're all in that mix. I don't see that that's a price to pay to have a very clean-looking golf course lawn. If people want to pay for that, let them pay their gardeners more to sweep. I am sorry. It's not worth the health risks and the pollution risk. I don't care about the noise. I care about the air pollution and what we're bringing into our lungs.
Craig Beam?
Thank you, members of the council, Mayor Strobel. As you know, I live in an area where I think we are owned by our oak trees. I don't object to that. I love the oak trees, but unfortunately, oak trees drop an enormous amount of leaves. I have some photographs that were taken recently, which illustrates the issue. The issue I have, and it came to me after we had a horrible fire, which they were doing airdrops right behind our house, virtually up the end of Cañada, was that, you know, when you realize the amount of flammable stuff you have on your property, it's a real problem. So from my standpoint, leaf blowers are more than a convenience, although they're that. I would estimate it'd take 4 people probably once a week to free my property of oak leaves. Right now it takes 2, and they use a gas blower, which I do not object to. But the reality is that after that incident, I had ash this deep on my lawn, and it struck me that I really needed to be vigilant to keep oak trees off the rain gutters, out of the rain gutters, out of the channels on the roof and what have you, because it was literally a situation where, because of sparks from a fire that was miles away, I could have lost my house. So I'm very, very vigilant of that. What that takes is something that works. It's sufficient that it has enough power. Noise is a problem. I don't know, frankly, whether or not the 65 dB blowers work efficiently or not to clear things like rain gutters without asking young men to get on a roof periodically, perhaps once or twice a month, to clean off a roof to keep the gutters and everything else clear. I would not wish them on that simply because it's dangerous. So I think gas blowers are fine. I don't see a real reason to separate out gas blowers as long as they're effective and as long as they meet some reasonable standards. I think that a key issue that isn't being discussed here is fire safety for those areas that have a significant amount of trees. If you look at those photographs now, you ought to see it in the springtime. In the springtime, the leaves are this deep. It's what it is. We have 3 of the jumbo size yard waste things that go out every other week. They weigh 60 pounds apiece. My wife, who's not exactly weak, can't even move the darn things. I can barely get them out. So, you know, the people that come and help us with our property help us maintain not only the appearance and usability and safety, and usability also deals with being able to grow anything versus being inundated with leaves everywhere. I think you need to be careful about mandating a period of time by reducing the income of these good people that help us. I think it's almost better to warn people you're going to cut it off at a certain point in time and have newer equipment, and then say you're going to reduce their income and go by the way, go out and buy all new equipment. That may have frankly, not the correct effect you want. But I think at the end of the day, you know, we should work with people. The city should do everything they can. I don't know if there's a buyer's club or something the city could help sponsor to help buy new equipment or the likes. But anything that we can help these people that actually help maintain and assist the usability of our property, I think is a good idea. But in areas with lots of oak trees, which we love, it is a serious problem. It is a serious maintenance problem. I certainly can't go out and do it myself. I would literally be doing it every day. I don't have the time while I'm working. I probably wouldn't have the time if I'm not working because of some of the rigors of trying to get stuff off my leaf. But I'm very worried about the safety. I'm very worried about fire safety. Please take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Michael Daly.
Hello, Council and Mayor. Michael Daly, 1001 Grandview Avenue. I support the ordinance that is being proposed, the changes. I think that it covers most of the things that we'd like to see addressed. I think a ban on the blowers completely would have many adverse effects. Income, safety, cleanness of the city, I think that we need to be responsible about how we use the blowers. I think they're a very useful tool, but it is still a tool. I think that it needs to be used in a manner where, as Mr. Haney was talking about, respectful of people, being conscious of who's around you. The electric blowers, in my opinion, are louder than the gas blowers, and we have tried using those on some large-scale HOAs, and it's almost comical to watch the crews dragging around 400 feet of cord and a little electric blower to do the blowing. It was not very cost-effective. We weren't able to. The time, it increased our time about threefold to do the same amount of space, the property, and the owners weren't as happy with the appearance because we weren't able to do as nice of a job. I think a lot of it comes down to the respect and the responsibility. I like the idea of some type of a training program or certification. I think that's a great way to help ensure that the people that are using the equipment will abide by the rules. I do think there needs to be some clear access or way for people to complain. If this is going to be a complaint-driven ordinance, then there has to be a way for that to happen. And a very clear way. And maybe there's the number they call, maybe it's the Public Works, and they say, hey, I've got somebody over here, they're not being responsible about their usage of the blower, and I'd like to make a complaint. And I know that it's difficult. It places a great burden on our police staff. I hate to see that increased. I know there's a lot more important things that they need to address than dealing with the blower issue. But I do support the majority of the content of the new ordinance that's being proposed. And I like the idea of certification. I like the idea of tagging, having some accountability. I think that's very important. And knowing who's using the equipment is helpful to ensure that that occurs. And I thank you for listening to me.
I had a question. Suppose we banned all leaf blowers, and your clients could not hire somebody off the avenue on El Roblar to leaf blow with their own blower because they're just banned. How would that affect your business? If there is absolutely no way they can use leaf blowers themselves, or an illegal unlicensed gardener, or yourself.
So if you just made a complete ban
Absolutely.
where citizens couldn't use it either?
No, nobody could use it. My little electric blower in my garage, I cannot use.
How would that affect my business? Well, it wouldn't affect me that greatly. I don't have that many accounts within the city limits.
That's what I'm saying. It would have a negative.
Well, I'm not.
It's
I'm
a
not
level playing field.
I'm not one of the major people in the city doing maintenance.
I understand.
My concern would be, I would pose a question to you. I would say, what's next?
I don't care what's next. I don't want more kids with asthma. The
No,
rate
I'm
of
not
asthma
saying-
has
I'm
gone
not
3
saying-
times since I have been in pediatrics, and it's due to air pollution. The noise is not even an issue with me. It's the air pollution. It's the powdered feces going into the air. I don't care that my lawn looks
When you
like
rate
I
the
have
same
a golf course. There's no problem with competition. No one can use them, period.
Do you
Okay,
think
I'm going to
that by
go on to our
Okay.
next speaker.
Okay. All right. If
Thank you.
take away the blower, then my question was, what's
Thank
next
you.
that you're going to take away? Where does it stop?
Renee Roth. And I'll ask our council members to hold your comments as far as opinions until we finish with the public speakers.
Good evening, members of the council and Mayor Strobel. My name is Renee Roth. I live at 605 West Eucalyptus Street in Ojai. And you have to excuse my attire. I've been out working in the dirt and the mud, and I'm one of those people who gets dirty and muddy, and I like leaves. I think leaves are good. I think leaves deserve to be able to stay in the ground and provide nutrition and nutrients to the soil. So I'm a sustainable landscaper. I'm also a rainscape designer, and I help people harvest rainwater and put that into their landscape. So I use a lot of mulch and wood chips and all those things that are good for the earth. So I'm just putting that voice forward tonight. The other thing I just want to say is, as a personal who lives in Ojai, I'm renting a house right now, and I want to applaud the people who are here because they care. I want to say, everybody who came here tonight, congratulations, because I live in a rental house. My landlady pays for the leaf blowers, and every time they come on Thursday morning, I have to stand back because I'm greeted with these guys who are running up the driveway, and they're greeting me with a lawn blower in their hand, the leaf blower, and there's two of them. So I get two guys coming up the driveway ready to attack. There's no conversation, there's nothing to talk about. So I have a personal experience with not liking leaf blowers, and then I walk out the front door and I get the gas fumes that blow in my face. So just from that toxic environment, I don't like them. If there's a way to do it that's cleaner, that's safer, that's better for the environment, I would like to see that happen. And I also educate homeowners about trying to keep the leaves in the landscape rather than blowing them all away. So I'm just trying to put that point of view forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sherry and Kate?
Hi, I live in the Village Mixed Use area on West Aliso Street. So we have the many professional landscape companies coming in every day of the week. They always come in the morning, and so the sun is coming up in the east, and they're blowing, and the sun shines sideways through the cloud of pollen and dust and leaves and whatever. You can't even see through the cloud. And I run and close all my windows because and Councilwoman Carol Smith will know this, it's called an immunocap test. And I was having all kinds of allergy symptoms and couldn't figure out what was going on. And they have levels of sensitivity to different things, and the test is specific to where you live. So I got the test that was for the Ojai Valley, and so it included oak and pine, and we live underneath a lot of pine trees right where I am. So all of that was tested, and it goes from 0 to 4 in terms of your amount of sensitivity. And Jay Simons, who's my partner, had the same test, and he was at 0 at everything. I was at 4. And I have to constantly be taking something to prevent myself from getting sick all the time. So I am bothered by the noise, but I could probably live with the noise. I'm more concerned about the health quality of our air. We live in a bowl. I mean, if you look at the Ojai Valley from the air, we're like the Shumash used to call it, the nest. We live in a little nest, and when stuff gets stirred up, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't blow away like if you lived in Ventura and the nice breeze came through from the ocean and it would blow it somewhere else. It doesn't go anywhere else. It stays here, and it just circles around until it settles back down again. So I really don't want to live with that kind of air quality. I would support the phase out. 3 years sounds like a long time for me to put up with the allergies that I have. If you could pull it off in a year, I know it would be a financial hardship for the landscapers. Apparently they're going to have to charge their customers more for what they do. I think most of us take care of our own landscaping. I do. I like leaves. I put them in the compost bin. And, you know, Michael Inaba, who's done a workshop here at the city's community demonstration garden, considers oak leaves gold. You keep those oak leaves and you put it on your underneath your trees and your plants, instead of going down to the nursery and buying a bag of compost. You've already got the materials for the compost right there. So at any rate, if Santa Barbara and Santa Monica can pull it off, I don't know why Ojai can't. My heart goes out to the people who depend on an income of having to do landscaping and, you know, charge people more for the same thing because it takes them longer to do it with a rake or something. But I don't think it's worth giving up our health. That's why we're here. We like it here. We want to keep the quality of our lives quiet and clean. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa Cherry.
Good evening. I live at 245 South Padre Juan in Miners Oaks, and I don't have any oak trees on my property because I've just appreciated not having them when I bought my house. But I do work in the landscaping, and I do know of properties that have quite a bit of oaks, and the debris gets very high, especially certain times of year. Plus, the pollen, the yellow powdery stuff that comes off, and there's a lot of problems with people with allergies. As far as the Carol Smith with the allergies for children, those feces are going to be in the ground, and when you have leaves piled up, rats make nest in that. They make nest in the overgrown ivy. We have wind. That is all in our air. Leaf blowers aren't the only reason or the only cause of these things. I personally have allergies to the blooming of the eucalyptus. I have 2 huge eucalyptus in my backyard that belong to my neighbor. I lived through it during that time when they're blooming. As far as leaf blowers, I believe that, yes, there is new equipment where you can get the low decibels. I agree that the electrical ones don't have the power they need. I agree with Randy and several other people who spoke tonight that educating the users of the blowers is really important, because some of them really rev them up and it's up and down and it's really noisy. You can blow it at a low RPM and keep that noise level down. I agree that electrical ones have a very high-pitched noise. Whether it's under 65 decibels, I really don't know. And I guess the only other comment I would have is that as far as sweeping, because I've had properties where they've asked me to sweep out their gutters, and for elderly and people that are on disabilities that don't have that extra money to pay, they're barely getting by, maybe only having people come once a month or once every 2 weeks to do this because they can't afford any more than that. So you have to think about the elderly in this area and the community, the people that live here. So I agree that there should be a training and certification. I believe that there's a good time to do this on a yearly basis. I agree with the notice about breaking the city up into 4 quadrants and having a special day of the week. That would give the landscapers an opportunity to reschedule their properties, and people could be rid of the noise except for that on that day of the week. I guess if you have any questions, you can ask me now.
No, that's all right. Our next speaker, Steve, Colome.
Colome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Steve Colome, resident of 906 Ayers Avenue in Ojai, relatively new resident. Retired as a professor of environmental health sciences from UCLA. So my comments are addressing what I think have not been captured by the administrative report, which are additional nuisances and hazards from blowers, and that are not addressed in the administrative report. The focus is on noise here. Noise is really only a small part of the nuisance and the hazards. I can guarantee you're going to continue to get complaints even if there's a reduction in noise to 65 decibels. In terms of emissions, Greg mentioned that the CARB has been tightening. Both EPA at the federal level and CARB have increased the requirements for emission reduction. But these types of engines are very notoriously incomplete in their combustion. So you get cancerous agents like 1,3-butadiene and benzene and formaldehyde that come from those emissions, and we got whiffs of that. It's less of an impact on the general community than it is on these guys who are actually operating this with the equipment on their backs throughout a day. They really do have an occupational hazard in breathing the emissions from these gasoline-powered pieces of equipment. One sort of interesting anecdote, and this is in YouTube, and it was done by Edmunds, a car manufacturer, looking at a reference lab. But they took a two-stroke modern gas engine, and it had 300 times the emissions of a Ford Raptor for non-methane hydrocarbons. 4 strokes had 40 times the emissions. So it gives you a good sense of that. Now, in terms of emissions inventory, both EPA and California Air Resources Board estimate that 1% to 5% of the municipal inventory of particle emissions come from leaf blowers. That's that cloud of dust that we saw once the nozzle of the high velocity jet, whether it's electric or gas, blows this dust up. And I agree with Carol Smith that it's blowing all kinds of allergens, lead, everything from the ground that normally would not be lifted off because you've got a high velocity jet that's pushing this material along. These pieces of equipment deteriorate over time. The emissions actually increase. I know there was talk about recertifying the sound portion of it. So that's an issue. And I think in general the worker hazard is an issue that needs to be considered here. Thank you.
Rosa Razzo.
My name is Rosa Razo. I live at 1410 Cruzeiro Street. I know that's outside of the city limits, but my dad does work in the limits. My comment is for Carol Smith.
Address the entire council. Let's not single out a council person, please.
I apologize for that. Because I'm coming up here because of something she said.
Okay, we'll just address the entire council.
Sorry. So I know that my children could get asthma because my husband has it. And I understand the whole, when you use the leaf blowers, the dust is coming up, the pollen, all that. So, I mean, I'm fine with bringing in my kids for 2 hours till the dust settles and everything. And I mean, cost effectiveness, I mean, my dad works long hours and Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays. And if you take away the leaf blowers, he's going to be out there way longer, probably later till the night. He comes home at 5 every day, sometimes at 7. And taking away the leaf blowers, he's going to be coming home midnight just to accumulate the same amount of cash that he's getting now. So I really don't think there should be a ban of the leaf blowers. I do think that we should have the time limits or the zone area and having them go to that zone, on zone 1 on Monday, zone 2 on Tuesday, because that's pretty much what he does already. He goes in town on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then the other days he's outside of the city limits. But I think the zones would be a good thing where you guys give them times. I think that's good. I don't think you guys should completely ban them. So, thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards I have. Someone else in the public care to speak? Anyone else in the public? Okay, I'll bring it back to council.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Clapp.
I've been giving this a lot of thought for a long time. So I just want you to know that I've given it a lot of thought. To me, it's like trying to get a square peg in a round hole. And everybody knows when you're trying to get a square peg in a round hole, you're trying to do something that isn't right. It's not working. And that to me is what a leaf blower is. The gentleman who spoke about the science behind the dust, it's a really important issue that I agree wasn't addressed in the staff report. And to me, over and above the sound is really the more important element of this discussion because it's a public health issue. And to elaborate a bit on the health issue of what gets blown into the air, it's dust, fecal matter, pesticides, fungi, chemicals, fertilizers, spores, street dirt, lead, gasoline, ground up rubber from tires. 30% of the fuel in the engine fails to undergo complete combustion. The engine emits a number of air pollutants, and again, as was mentioned, carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, hydrocarbons. The Mount Sinai School of Medicine's Pediatric Environmental Health Specialty Unit says gas-powered leaf blowers pose multiple health threats. They include spreading airborne particles which can provoke asthma and other respiratory diseases, and potential pollutants like ozone, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, and hydrocarbons. With a muzzle velocity of 150 miles per hour, gas blowers blow herbicides, pesticides, and fecal contaminants up from the ground into the air, especially troubling asthmatics and allergy sufferers and increasing the threat to everyone. And this is very, very, very fine dust. So a lot of the haze you see in the air in this valley is indeed caused by everyday leaf blowers blowing this very, very fine particles into the air. And also the Ojai Valley has quite often a high pressure zone that presses down the air into the valley. And that's one of the problems that we have in this valley with air pollution is a high pressure holding the air into the bowl that we have here in the valley. So now that we know the facts about leaf blowers, and I trust that the council and our fellow neighbors will do the right thing. We have known for decades that leaf blowers are damaging to the earth and to its citizens. Imagine if there was a factory in town that was spewing out pollution into the air on a daily basis. Would we not step up and demand that it stop? The toxins that are blown skyward on a daily basis by leaf blowers are no less harmful. But because the pollution is not concentrated in a single smokestack, it's easy to overlook the damage these machines are doing to us every day, to every one of us. The worker using the leaf blower, the child with asthma, the elderly with respiratory problems, the person suffering from hay fever, the plants being starved for the nutrients nestled beneath our trees. It's time to put our children's health, the elderly's health, the workers' health, the earth's health, everyone's health first. It's time to finally say enough is enough. That's where I'm at this point. Leaf blowers were invented in 1970. That was 44 years ago. What in God's name did we do before that? We got up, walked out the door, grabbed a rake, grabbed a broom, went outside, connected with the earth, swept our porch, raked our yard, listened to the birds. And the very idea that we can't live without a leaf blower is absurd to the extreme. And that we're willing to continue to have them in this valley at the risk to everyone's health is unacceptable to me. As far as gardeners, I guarantee you they will not be put out of business because people need gardeners. And they're going to have to adjust the prices and people will pay. If McDonald's raises the hamburger price $1, you go, well, I guess I'm going to have to pay for it. If that's what's going to cost to have your garden maintained, that's what it's going to cost. And if you don't want to pay the extra, get up, say goodbye to your TV for a while, go outside, grab the rake, and sweep for a bit. Because the health of our community is more important. And I think it's time that we recognize that and act accordingly. So I, at this point, am in favor of a 100% ban in the community of blowers, gas and electric. It would save the city money. We always talk about code enforcement and how we don't have staff for it. The very idea that we're going to have somebody out there with a leaf blower that's going to make sure that the debris doesn't go beyond the vertically extended lines of the property on which the leaf blower is being used. I don't think that you can stop fine particles of dust from going over a property line. I don't think the dust cares about a property line, as far as I can tell. It would cost the city so much money to enforce this, and would cost the city, the citizens, so much more health-wise to continue using these things. It's just not acceptable to me. So I agree with Councilwoman Smith, and I hope my colleagues agree with me as well, that it's time to put the health of our community above a convenience that was created in modern times that we now feel we can't live without. Thank you.
Mayor Strobel.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
I appreciate our Public Works Department's suggestions on how we could change it, green tags, non-green tags, all this. But it's unenforceable. As it is, we have a problem with code enforcement. Number one, how is the public going to know these rules? How, people who get hired by licensed gardeners or maintenance crews, how are they going to know all the rules? When do they use the gas? When do they use the electric? And what about all the people who hire people off El Roblar just to come and get rid of all their leaves, and they have a blower at home? You see, the beauty of just banning blowers is it's not a question of making unfair competition. No one in the city can use a blower. I cannot use the blower in my garage. I cannot hire someone off El Roblar or Ojai Avenue to use my blower. That is the beauty of it. We are not creating an unfair environment for our licensed maintenance crews. The city will not be able to use blowers. The rate of asthma was 3 times less when I was a kid. 3 times less. I mean, what other evidence do you need? Yes, you may have to get up with a sweeper or whatever to clean out your gutters, but the rate of fires in the city of Ojai, except, if you live way out there on the end of, right near the mountains, is nothing like the rate of kids who are wheezing all the time. I mean, my kid left Ojai, and he went to college in a much cleaner environment. His asthma went away. I'm watching a kid suffer with asthma is horrible. I mean, what do we need these blowers for? I just think that it would be wise to let's do an ordinance for 9 months or something. Go ahead and ban all blowers, have all our licensed maintenance crews give out a flyer to their customers saying why we did it. If they have any complaints or they're worried about the looks of their yard or whatever, they can call the city, and we will give all our gardeners, information as to the health effects, and they will have no one to hire to do it. So there's no one at El Roblar who could come out and use the blower in the garage. They're just not allowed, period. You remember we used to have kids not using seat belts and child seats when I was little. They would fly out of cars like a bullet. And no, for young people, they can't imagine doing that. But that's how it was. I mean, we need to do whatever we can to prevent this huge epidemic of childhood asthma. The valley is polluted. We do not need to add to it. And so I am so strong against just let's try a ban. Let's see what happens 9 months without them. Your customers, you say, well, nobody could use them. They can hire someone off the street to use it. They cannot use their own blower. Let's see what happens without them. So I am really very strong about having a ban for 9 months. having the city have an information sheet, give it to all our licensed gardeners and maintenance crews saying why they're not using them. Have a number they can call at the city where a city employee basically talks to them as to why. And let's take it from there. Let's see how it works for 9 months. I'm not saying people have to pay more. If they want the look of a golf course, yeah, they'll have to pay more because nobody can use the blowers. But I think the health benefits are so worth it. We grew up, without blowers, and now the incidence of asthma is so high. It's frightening. Thank you.
Councilmember Blatz?
Yes, this is a real dilemma for me because, quite frankly, I don't personally find the blowers offensive from a noise standpoint or anything else. I don't have anybody that uses any blowers on my property. So when I come to a decision, it's because of all the information that I've been presented with in a meeting, because quite frankly, I don't have any personal feeling one way or the other. I look at the noise situation, and I do think it's a problem. I think it's a real problem with the noise. And then I support staff's recommendation that we regulate these when it comes to noise. Here's the problem I have with an all-out ban. We are a small segment of this valley, and that means that anybody that's on Gridley, for instance, one side of the road can use a blower and the other side can't. If you're on El Toro, your neighbor can be using a blower and you can't. The people that are going to use the blowers are going to be able to use them everywhere outside the city. And I just don't see the benefit that the city as a whole is going to realize from that. Now, that being said, I do believe, at least somewhat, that these create a health problem. I'm not convinced 100% that it does, but I believe it does do some sort of a health problem. So I just think that an outright ban is not, an outright ban is not going to do what I think it's going to do to prevent the asthma and things like that. I just don't see it within our small little enclave. If the county or we had any control over the incorporated area, Miners Oaks, Miramonte, I think I'd probably be voting and say I'd be in favor of a ban. But I'm just thinking that our 3.5 square miles, I just don't think that if we're gonna eliminate them, that it's the health reasons that we should do it. So that being said, I firmly believe that we ought to regulate them as to the decibel level and not have anything to do with whether it's gas or electric. I think that we should require a business license for anybody that's using a blower, and I think that the way we certify and provide those stickers is through a business license process. And we certify that they're trained, and I wouldn't be adverse to separating the city into zones for certain days that the blowers could be used. It's a close call for me, though. Very close call.
Madam Mayor, real quickly.
Councilmember Platt.
For me, whether or not we solve the problem 100% within the valley isn't the issue. We passed an ordinance about plastic bags because it was the right thing to do. The rest of the valley still uses them, but we've also helped encourage other communities to follow suit. And more plastic bag bans are occurring every day. We also passed an ordinance against styrofoam because it was the right thing to do, knowing that we were only a small part of the valley. Within my own home, I don't make a decision about doing something right or wrong because somebody else isn't doing it. I do it because it's the right thing to do. No, we can't solve the entire valley's pollution problems, but we can be an example and we can start. the solution starts with one step here and then another step and another step, and as time goes on, things get better and better. To say just because not everybody else is doing it, I'm not going to do it because it won't make any difference, to me is a logic I can't really get behind. Pardon me. So I still have to say that I would like to do, as Councilwoman Smith said, reach towards a total ban, because again, it's the right thing to do.
Okay. I think we should ban leaf blowers because of the health issues, the safety of our community, air pollution, noise pollution, erosion of topsoil, the hazardous emissions, the drought that we're in right now makes it even more critical. So I think I would like us to consider a total ban on leaf blowers and limiting any landscaping equipment to 65 decibels.
Madam Mayor, any landscaping equipment to 65 decibels, like a lawnmower and things like that as well?
No, like a
or like
hedge
trimmers and stuff?
I don't know how
don't know
loud
what
is
they
a
do.
launmower. I said consider.
Yeah.
So let's put it on the table for considered. I didn't say let's ban all lawnmowers.
I have another question. What Councilman Blatz asked about a taking with the leaf blowers. So if we do proceed with the ban, how do we reconcile that question? Because they can still use them outside of the city.
Exactly. Since it is a transit, this is a piece of equipment people use inside and outside the city. I think you have less of an issue of the need if you're going to do an outright ban. I think the worst thing to do would be to require people to buy new equipment and then ban the new equipment. You might want to consider some sort of a process where if some particular contractor could establish that a significant portion of their business is earned within the city limits, and they had recently purchased a piece of equipment, maybe a buyback program, maybe I don't know, maybe they can use it for 12 months. I think part of that is the feedback process you get if we actually put an ordinance before the community to consider. It's really a function of doing a little bit of analysis on what the economic impact on an operator would be if overnight a piece of equipment was no longer usable. And I'd probably recommend if you go forward directing us to draft an ordinance, we'd also have work with staff to do some sort of financial analysis to quantify that, and maybe it's not a big enough risk.
Could I make a suggestion? With the plastic bag ban and the styrofoam ban, what we did is we just set a date, and it was far enough out that it allowed, for example, with styrofoam, people to use up their stock of existing styrofoam, or with the bags, same thing. And it also gave us time to get the word out. So, it wasn't like we passed the ordinance and 30 days later it's in effect. Mm-hmm. We passed the ordinance and July 1st it's in effect, or January 1st, whatever day you want to pick. Then with those ordinances, we also had a hardship provision where theoretically someone could come to us and make a claim that they need more time for whatever reason, because they have too much stock or something like that. Now, actually, in reality, nobody did do that. But at least it would address what Mr. Fletcher was addressing, that you may have someone who's in a unique circumstance and you'd have a process for evaluating that.
I have a real quick question on that, too. I don't know what kind of buyback programs there are out there, whether that's something that's feasible. Are you familiar with any sort of buyback programs? Mm-hmm. Or is there any sort of budget in the city?
No, we don't have any budget in the city. I know Edison Company's done that for, like, refrigerators and things.
Yeah, but not necessarily.
But I don't know where we would get the funding for that.
Okay. Well, then I would like to make a motion to draft an ordinance banning the use of electric or gas-operated leaf blowers within the city limits of Ojai. And yeah, that's simple. Okay.
I'll second that. I would like to readdress it, though, in 9 months to 12, to a year, go ahead
Like we did the plastic
and have
bags.
another workshop to see how it has affected our licensed maintenance companies and the public, to do that. But the other thing is, when people buy equipment, who are landscaping and maintenance companies, probably 2/3 of their jobs are outside the city. So when, far as you say, well, how do you depreciate equipment that they bought, they would have to show, here are their customers, and what percentage are actually within the city, because they could be using the equipment they bought outside the city.
As a discussion item, if and it appears the council's prepared to pass this ordinance, I would request that a effective date be included in the ordinance that would give everyone enough time, I'm thinking 90 days, to be able to rearrange however they're going to be doing their business, as well as you don't want one company being able to be out there blowing and other companies not being able to blow, and you have unfair competition then where you can go and say, well, hey, I can do it for less because I can use my blower for another 6 months. I think if you're going to do it, give everybody the same amount of time, and then as of a certain date, that's it.
Okay, so those are comments that we would want included in the discussion on the ordinance. The motion on the table is a complete ban of, I started to say hair dryers, a complete ban
Blowhards?
of leaf blowers. And we have the motion, we have a second. Roll call?
Blatz?
No.
Clapp?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
All right.
Can I address the council just one more time?
No.
No.
Okay.
I have a question, not about leaf blowers.
All right, the council has made a decision on this issue. It will come before council again. At this point, there is no ban on leaf blowers, but it will come to the council to discuss an ordinance banning leaf blowers. At that time, we can continue this, but right now, we're going to move on. Quiet. The next item is a public hearing. It's the continued public hearing on the proposed fee schedule for 2014-15. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is really a status report on the fee study, as we're only partially complete with it.
Just a moment. The council is in session. Please take the conversation outside. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This is an ongoing review of our fee study. The study is not complete at this point in time, but it's an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into the methodology that we've been using and to get feedback both from the public and the City Council. The portion that we have that we think is ready for review has to do with our overhead calculations, our building and safety fees, and our grading fees. And embedded in that is also a discussion of the solar fee waiver, which is about to expire. So to start with overhead fees, whenever we charge an applicant or someone who's receiving a service based on the amount of time city staff or city consultants spend performing the duty, we include an overhead charge. And in the past, that's been 60% for staff and 10% for consultants. In doing our analysis of this, 60% is a little bit below what the actual overhead is for staff, but we think it's a supportable rate. And so we're recommending that stay in place. 10% is actually quite low for consultants, and so we're recommending that be boosted up to 15%. And basically, our overhead for consultants is calculated using the methodology that's prescribed by the federal government for calculating overhead for grants. So we have a consistent overhead calculation process throughout the organization. As far as building and safety fees go, our building and safety fees were set at the same rate as the counties in 2008 and have not been revised since then. And there's a couple components to the building and safety fees. One is the valuation of property, because the fee is calculated by applying a rate to the valuation. The valuation, according to the county, is 7.5% higher than it was in 2008. And we feel that we should start by using the same valuation schedule as is used in all the unincorporated area around the city. The next question to ask is, what rate should we charge? And so we've done an analysis from several points of view to try and figure that out. But the primary one is cost recovery. Are we actually recovering 100% of our costs for building plan check and building inspection with the rates that we have in place? And that actually proved to be a little bit complicated because we've changed the method in which we provide those services. So when we had a full-time employee who was the building official and inspector and code enforcement officer, we were actually not covering our costs. But we believe that even if we charge a fee less than that charged by the county, at this point in time, we will fully recover our costs, because using a consultant to do the plan check and the inspection is more efficient cost-wise. So based on our analysis, we're recommending that the rate be set at 96% of the rate that's charged by the county in the unincorporated area. And just when you think about it, in sort of at 30,000 feet, at the county, they've got a lot of territory to cover, so their building inspectors are driving all over the place, and we have a fairly concise area, so we really can be more efficient. And so I think it does make sense that our rate would be a little bit lower. So that's for the general rate that's based on property valuations. Then there's a whole bunch of special rates that are for specific types of services. And the standard format, and I, at this point, have to compliment Susie Mears for the work she's done on this. The standard way to do this is to pay a consultant $45,000 to $50,000 to come and interview all your employees and find out how much time they spend providing these services. And we save that money by having Susie spend a whole heck of a lot of time interviewing primarily the department heads, but also other people, to find out how long it takes us to provide a service on average. And when we went through that analysis, we came up with rates for all these specialized services. We then wanted to compare what those rates were to other agencies, which we thought, oh, this will be easy. We'll just get their fee schedule off the website and rip through it. Well, as it turns out, everybody does it differently, and we didn't get full comparisons for every rate. But my feeling was that we got enough comparisons to be able to say that our rates for these specific services would be less than the comparison agencies, except for Santa Barbara County, which for some reason charges very low rates. So I think the net result of the analysis so far is that our rates, both for the specialized services and for the general services, should be a little bit less than the counties, but higher than what they are right now. So that's how we did that. The other item that I wanted to go into a little bit is that we have a solar fee waiver, which is a building permit fee. And solar fees typically would be based on the assessed value of the system that's being installed, but the state established a $500 cap. So the average...
For electricity or hot water, or doesn't
For the solar panels on the roof for electricity.
but some are just for hot water.
This would be for electricity, yeah. So our fees range from about $400 to $1,200 depending on the size of the system. That was capped at $500, and the number of systems that we have when we waived the fee was 48, which is a lot more than what we'd had before, which saved someone $22,000. I guess the one caveat I would make is that the solar industry is booming right now, whether you waive your fees or not. So I'm not sure how much of the increase in installations is due to the fee waiver, or how much is due to just the fact that solar systems financing has come to a point where there's now ways to finance it without breaking the bank and spending more than you spend on your electrical bill. So we would like to get some direction from the council as to whether you want to continue that waiver for another period of time or let it expire in August, because that was the expiration date that we originally set.
Madam Mayor, could I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Is that listed on one of the fee items?
There's a paragraph on it on page 3 of 3.
Oh, I read the paragraph. I just
Okay.
didn't know if it was listed in our.
Yeah, it
packet.
is somewhere.
Yeah, I tried to look for it. I couldn't find it. 3-31.
There's an interested party in the audience. So then, the other set of fees that we analyzed and are ready to review today are the grading fees. And I'm not really sure how long it's been since we've reviewed our grading fees, but they're really exceptionally low, and they do not recover the cost of service. And so we did the analysis similar to what we did for the specific fees under grading, and we came up with rates, and again, compared our rates to the other agencies, and our rates would still be quite a bit lower than what the other agencies charge. And typically, grading is handled by a consultant as well, so that makes sense, I guess. So that's a very broad overview. I'm interested in any specific comments you have or any general comments you have about the approach. And we're continuing to work through that, and I'm hoping that we'll have this whole thing done in a month. So we're asking that the matter be continued for a month so that we can bring the whole thing back.
Okay, any comments, questions for Mr. Clark?
Madam Mayor, just a point of clarity, when you say the whole thing done, that's just the other departments, this specific part of the building and safety fees, is that completed?
That's completed, yeah. So we have administrative fees, development fees, drainage fees, facility and service fees, cemetery fees, and encroachment fees all left to do. And they're all pretty far along, but we're.
And then just going back to the solar.
Yes.
A question, so it's 3-31. It's really confusing to me where the solar part comes in, or the solar fees. Is it in the, is it the whole, because the whole thing is, that it would cost, if we add up certain items, it's gonna cost a good amount of money just to get the permit.
Hang on a
It
second.
surpassed the $500 limit, right?
No,
I don't see any, that's the only thing that's even close.
that's not it. Let me look at another spot.
Deborah, you said 131, are you talking
There-
about
it's-
Voltaic or wind?
Are we talking about the whole 3-31? I have service.
Yeah, it's
Which
more
one is
service.
that?
Yeah, building and
Voltaic
safety
West.
fees. Oh,
Yeah.
real. Oh, busways.
Okay, I think what might be helpful is, how about if we go ahead and listen to Deborah, because I know she has some information on this, and then we can go back to other questions we have. Is that, Deborah?
Thank you, Mayor Strobel, council members. I first kind of, if you'll indulge me, share something that I read recently that's somewhat of an analogy, because I know you still have a lot of work to do on this, but I would like to perhaps suggest a way of framing this and creating context around it for us as we consider all of these various fees. So this is an excerpt from an article. The net economic contribution of trees, bear with me, is coming to be better quantified and appreciated with the use of computer-assisted methodologies. It is now possible to calculate an approximate economic impact of a tree resources on a community-wide, metropolitan, and even global basis. Recently, researchers from around the globe developed an estimate of the economic contribution of the planet's natural systems. This particular study placed the net economic worth of the environmental services provided by the world's forest biome at $4.7 trillion annually. A comprehensive study at the metropolitan level modeled the projected costs and benefits of planting and maintaining 95,000 trees around the Chicago area over a 30-year period. The researchers projected that the value of the air pollution, attenuation, energy saving, hydrologic, and other benefits provided by trees would exceed the cost to plant and maintain them by an average of nearly 3 to 1. It was estimated that investments in trees yield an average net present value, which is benefits less costs, of $402 per tree planted, and to have an average payback period of between 8 and 19 years, depending on location, species, and discount rate. So I'm sharing this kind of as a broader picture, but as we think about our fees and other things that we do in our communities, it's very interesting that we are now integrating our natural resources, and I would suggest through something as narrow as our fee schedules of our human actions as assets or not assets, liabilities to our community. It's really a new way of looking at ourselves as an entity, as a government entity, as cities and counties. And so I find it very intriguing. And so when looking at this, and I see the equations using, and our new proposed recovery of costs is 100% across the board. I would suggest that, that we kind of need to, it's like incentivizing the things that do contribute to our public good, the common good of our community, and for lack of a better word, penalize those that don't. So for instance, in our listings here, one thing would be, it shows demolition. And I don't know if deconstruction is also part of that, but when you think about maybe your fee structure would be 150% on demolition, 50% on deconstruction. It's that same thing when we're doing our contract with Public Works with Harrison and the concept of zero waste. We're not going to achieve zero waste. It's an intention, it's a pathway, and I think our fee structures can do a lot psychologically as well as physically in our community. And that when we structure our fees, and whether it's the solar or again demolition versus deconstruction, gray water, which I didn't see specifically listed, rainwater catchment.
Finish up, and then council has some questions for you.
Let's really incentivize those things that increase our community public good, our assets, and make people think twice about those things that would actually take away from that. Thank you.
Okay. I think Deborah, did council have a question for Deborah regarding the solar fee waiver? I thought that was where you were going.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what included the solar fee waiver, or what was what items would include that.
I think my memory's coming back to me.
All right, wait a minute. Before we go there then, let me just, as far as solar, do you think that the solar fee waiver has stimulated the use of solar appliances?
Right. I would think a straight-out waiver in and of itself would have very little impact on a person's final decision whether to purchase or not. When you're looking at such a large ticket item in the first place, $500 or less is not going to make or break. Again, for me, and the coalition, it's really kind of the philosophical choices we make and how the percentages that we might use when a person's looking at their different options and costs, that they have to pay. I don't know that a waiver specifically, makes that much difference for folks.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah.
Anyone else have, before we let you sit down again?
Yeah, I think it's intention. That's why the county does it. They have their waiver is somewhat permanent.
I just have a comment, Madam Mayor. When we were talking about solarizing Ojai, and we were able to kind of sell that process and say the city was relaxing their fees, I thought that was somewhat beneficial, and if nothing else, it was a positive. And I agree with Deborah in that we should discount, have a fee schedule that we discount for certain things and charge the full amount for others. And we discount those things that we feel, as she's saying, are for the common good. So, for instance, if our standard fee schedule for something is $150 as an example, and that's for doing it with non-energy efficient product or whatever. And even though it may cost the homeowner more to use the more energy efficient product, instead of it being 150, it may be 50, or it might be 75. That's where I think. But I don't know whether the offset in the cost of the materials is going to make the difference, like the permit is going to make a difference if we reduce our fees. I don't know. Is somebody going to spend $500 more to save $150? I don't know. I just don't know the answer to that. I think in theory, though, it's nice. And I really think that our fee schedule should incentivize those areas of particularly maintenance and renovation and demolition and things like that in a direction that we believe is what the city wants to do. Maybe it's, if you have a landscaping permit and you go to whatever they, what's it called, Gary, Zeroscape or something? Well, then if you have to get a permit for the landscaping, maybe for Zeroscaping, it's a substantially reduced fee, if that's what we want to do. And I think that's what Deborah was saying, isn't it? Yeah.
And Mr. Clark, you said your memory was coming back?
Yeah, my memory's coming back. So I'm not there are some things, some detailed things in here that look like solar fees, but actually, now I'm remembering again what I told you in the very beginning, which is that the solar fee is based on the value of the solar system. So yeah, it's the percentage. So, but we could certainly, it's, in these fees, we typically did charge 100%. There's a few exceptions. But when we get to some of the other fees, we are proposing exactly what you guys are talking about, which is to discount certain fees for certain reasons. For example, we've discounted appeals because we want to have an open process and not prevent people from bringing forward a justified appeal. We've discounted signs because sometimes the cost of processing the sign permit was more than the sign was, so it was just reasonableness. We've discounted bicycle stickers because there's a social benefit to getting people to register their bike. So we could go through the building permit fees based on some of the comments that you've made tonight and highlight things that would be like the gray water system or the solar system that are sort of environmentally responsible investments. And it's really more of a whether it encourages people to do it or not, at least it brings attention to.
It's a pat on the back.
Right. Yeah. So we can do that.
Any other questions, comments from council?
No.
No? I don't have it, well, I had one speaker card, that was Deborah. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? All right, we've given the staff some of our comments, and the recommendation is that we continue this public hearing to the August 26th meeting. Do we need a motion on that?
I guess we do need a motion.
You can direct that.
Oh, you just directed it.
The mayor can direct that.
Okay. Then I just directed it. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a discussion item. It's an ordinance amending the powers and duties of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Mr. Clark?
I think
About the flood protection.
I think we're on item number 4.
I am consistent tonight, there's nothing else. I have got consistency going. Okay, public hearing. Our next item is to introduce an ordinance, proposed amendment to the flood protection ordinance, first hearing.
Okay, Mr. Grant will make this report.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I wondered about that. Okay, so we're back at it. I guess as a first step, do we open the public hearing?
No, you do your staff presentation first.
Okay, do it first, all right, yes. As a reminder, it's been going on for some years now. The county, in conjunction with FEMA, initiated an East Ojai Valley Alluvial Plain Study, and that was an effort to take the East Ojai Valley quite a few of the residents out of the floodplain area. So it was a benefit primarily to the county residents, the unincorporated area. Unfortunately, it affected part of the city on the east end. And last August, you may recall, we had a public outreach where we, the maps were in an appeal period, and we outreached to the community through newspapers and contacting all affected parties within the city limits directly. And we had a meeting at the Chaparral Auditorium, and that was, I think, last August. And that appeal period has ended, and now it triggers the effective maps. The new flood maps for the East Ojai Valley area will become effective in September of this year. And we do have an outreach meeting planned for this Thursday, and it will be here in the council chambers, and we'll be discussing what that means when these new maps become effective. Primarily, anybody new to the floodplain will be required to have flood insurance is the major effect. And of course, it does affect things like your building code requirements in flood zones and so on as well. But as far as part of that new map procedure and process that FEMA goes through, there is actually a routine requirement by FEMA to review our flood ordinance. They reviewed our flood ordinance and just found a few minor items. These are not considered substantial, I believe, but they were, as listed in the administrative report, there's some definitions that had to be, that were missing from our flood ordinance. There were some requirements that we notify FEMA when new technical data becomes available. This would be primarily if buildings affect the floodplain and affect the flow, that we notify FEMA so they can do LOMARs, which are letters of map revisions and so on. And then lastly, there's a requirement that recreational vehicles in high-risk areas are operational and that they're not left there for more than 6 months. And that was primarily a problem during some of the 2005 and any flooding that happens in areas that old RVs can be left and they flow downstream and get stuck against bridge abutments. And I think that happened on the San Antonio, even in this area, several, during the 2005 flooding. So those are relatively minor adjustments that are required to the flood ordinance, and that's what the ordinance is all about, and be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Grant, you mentioned that there will be an outreach Thursday. That would be July 24th.
Yes.
Watch me on everything. July 24th, what time?
At 6 p.m. here at the council chambers.
Okay. Any questions from council for staff?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the definitions that were missing, were they provided by staff or were they provided by FEMA?
It's by FEMA. It's a model ordinance provided by FEMA.
And also, one more question. In order to be included in the National Flood Insurance Program, we need to make these changes. That's correct, right?
That's correct.
Could you tell me the benefit of being part of the National Flood Insurance Program?
It's primarily discounted rates that practically any federally backed loan, and most private loans as well, if you're within a floodplain, at least your structure, they're going to require that you have flood insurance. So the FEMA has required significantly discounted rates. I should mention at the same time that they're stepping up those rates, that they've, as a result of Katrina and Sandy, they've had major losses in the FEMA funds, and now they're trying to go to full actuarial rates. So as part of that, they had their step. They did a major step. If anybody dropped their coverage, they came back at a very much higher rate, sometimes 5 or 20-fold what their previous rate was. And the Obama administration came in with an affordability act towards flood insurance, where they are phasing in now. I think they have an option where they phase it in at 15 to 20% increases per year whenever you get a new rating on your flood insurance. But you're always grandfathered in. That's the primary focus of that outreach meeting this upcoming Thursday, is that if you don't have flood insurance, get it now and get grandfathered into the previous rate, and you're locked in.
Okay.
If you wait till later, you're not.
Great. And are you notifying the people that live in that new area?
Yeah, we've sent two. The county sent one letter, and we're sending an additional letter as well.
All right, great. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council to staff? Thank you, Mr. Grant. And I'll open the public hearing. I don't have any speaker cards. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this issue? Do we want to go ahead and close the public hearing?
Yes.
Then I close the public hearing. And we'll ask our city clerk to introduce the ordinance by reading by title only.
An ordinance of the City of Ojai amending various sections of Title IX, Chapter 9 of the Ojai Municipal Code related to flood protection regulations.
And the council would need a motion to find that the proposed amendment to the flood protection ordinance is exempt from CEQA. Anyone like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion. Do we introduce an ordinance which amends various sections of the city?
Just number 3.
Oh, just number 3. Find the proposed amendment to the flood protection ordinance is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA.
Second.
Roll call?
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. The next item on our agenda is discussion items. It's the ordinance amending the powers and duties of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Mr. Clark?
Mr. McCleary will be making this report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Steve McCleary, Deputy City Manager. This report tonight is a culmination of an effort that has been at least 6 months of work between the staff and the members of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I would say back in the fall, we started taking a look through the municipal code with the members, with the Parks and Recreation Commission, and went through a process to really go through and analyze what the duties and the responsibilities are of the commission. And we had a lot of discussion and a little bit of back and forth on that. And the recommendation tonight is the result of all that work. We are asking the council to introduce an ordinance tonight that would amend the municipal code to update the powers and duties of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Let me go into some of the highlights. We did take a little bit of time to look at the membership section of the Parks and Recreation Commission, only in regards to the youth member. Clearly, the purview of the number of commissioners and all that was not something that was specifically discussed by the commission. That's really something that falls to the council. But there was discussion about the youth member. The way the code reads currently is that the youth member has to be a member of a high school in the Ojai Valley. And the commission has discussed that. And they think a better requirement would be that the youth member be a resident in the Ojai Valley. As it stands right now, you could technically have somebody who could be eligible to serve as the youth member because they attend a high school in Ojai, but they could actually live outside of the community. Probably unlikely, but a possibility. So we did have a little bit of discussion on that, and the recommendation from the commission was that we change that eligibility requirement so that they simply have to be a resident of the Ojai Valley. We spent the bulk of the discussion going through the powers and duties that are listed in the code. Some of them were a bit vague and also seemed to be a little bit in conflict with the city manager council form of government, specifically on the selection of personnel. And I know Chair Haney is here as well, and I believe he would like to make some comments on this report. Before I get into a little bit about the commission's opinion on the powers and duties with the selection of personnel, I wanted to just take a moment before we got into that to just take a moment to read into the record what we are proposing to be the revised powers and duties of the commission. So I'll try to be brief and summarize as much as I can. So what we're proposing is that the commission would act in an advisory capacity to the council on all matters pertaining to recreation programs and facilities. Pretty cut and dry. The second recommendation is to aid and advise the city manager on the level and composition of staffing to effectively conduct the city's recreation programs and the qualities of key department personnel such as the director or assistant director. C, to become knowledgeable about the general field of recreation, programs and facilities provided by other agencies and organizations within the area, and the needs of the city recreation program participants and the recreation facility users. D, to receive input from current and potential recreation program participants. E, to periodically review the recreation element of the general plan. F, to periodically review recreation policies of the city and make recommendations to the city council. G, to participate in the annual review of the proposed budget as it relates to recreation programs and facilities. And to participate in the annual review of the 5-year capital improvement plan, again, as it relates to recreation facilities. Paragraph I is to participate in the annual review of city fees as it relates to recreation programs. And then lastly, J would be to make recommendations to promote participation in recreation programs and use of recreation facilities. We feel that those, I missed one. K, which is to report fully to the public through the council on all of the activities of the commission at least once per year. So with the exception of the one area that we're going to talk about, the commission was very supportive of the recommended changes and feel that this is a good way of concisely stating what the powers and duties are of the commission, which I think not only helps the commissioners understand what their roles are, but also the expectations of the public. So the one area that we did not have total agreement on was this section to change the section that has to do with aiding and advising the selection of personnel. The current code states, so this is section 2.4104B, states to aid and advise the council or city manager in the selection of properly qualified personnel to conduct the recreation program of the city. We believe that section as it's written is actually in direct conflict with the council manager form of government, simply because you as the council hire the city manager to hire, evaluate, train, and supervise the staff. We were concerned with having something in the books that again would lead to some confusion and misunderstanding in terms of what the commission's role is in the selection of personnel. However, as I stated, the commission does feel like they would like to retain some of this language in the code, and so they actually had a different motion, which was not to support the recommended action, so I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out to the council. And the commission's recommended language for section B, and it's going to sound a little bit like what I just read and a little bit what I had read for the proposed language. It's to aid and advise the city council or city manager in the selection of properly qualified personnel to conduct the recreation programs of the city, and to aid and advise the city council or city manager on the selection of a director and or assistant director of recreation or equivalent thereof. One of the concerns that we have is having somebody being part of that interview process, and we get through, we do the interviews, and everybody agrees that they have a top candidate in mind. From there, the process actually becomes confidential in terms of background checks and other things that we will check on, references and whatnot, which might change who the city manager is recommending to hire for the position. That would put us in a difficult spot of not being able to explain back to the panel of why we are not making an offer to the person that they were recommending. And so we see that as being in a conflict. Really, that was the only issue that was of significant controversy, I would say. Like I said, generally the commission and staff were in agreement with the recommended changes to the code, and I know that Chair Haney is here to possibly make some comments on that, and I would invite any questions of the council.
Real quickly, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So you're saying we don't have the wording for what the Recreation Commission recommended, correct?
Yes,
The
we
wording-
do. It's at the bottom of
it's-
5-2.
Okay, that's their recommendation, but this one in the body of the ordinance is your recommendation
That
of
is
staff.
staff's recommendation,
Okay, gotcha. So
correct.
the one over here is okay, gotcha.
Right. But we want to make sure that the council.
Right, so that's
that
the one they
information.
prefer to have, and this is the one that you're recommending?
Correct.
Okay.
Bottom of page 5-2 is
Yeah.
reflective of the motion that the commission approved.
Gotcha, okay.
Any additional questions from council to staff? Okay. Commissioner Haney, did you want to speak?
Good evening. Yeah, the verbiage is
so close.
Pretty almost identical, huh? I think the major concern that we had from the, and I'll speak on behalf of all the commissioners, is we wanted to be present in the interview process, the interview only. If there's private, there's another word for it, if there's information that we're not privileged to, I don't think that's going to prevent us from helping or aiding the city manager or even Steve, if he was on the interview board, from making to make a sound decision. So part of their argument, I'm going to go all over the place with this, but we cannot be privy to confidential reference checks. Like I said, I think that's irrelevant. If I'm interviewing Mr. Lara, and we're on a board and we're asking questions, that's all the information that I need. I don't need to know if he has a DUI. I don't need to know any of that information, because that's not going to help me make a decision about him. Okay, the interview is going to help us make that decision. And all we're doing is aiding in the interview process. All we're doing is advising in the interview process, but we are not making the decision. Pretty simple, huh? We're aiding, we're listening, we're advising. We may like Carol Smith over Mr. Lara through this interview, and we're gonna let Mr. Clark know that. But if Mr. Clark has more information that he is only privileged to have, and for some reason Mr. Lara is not his choice, that's his choice. That shouldn't prevent us from sitting on an interview board. That shouldn't prevent us from bringing input from the citizens to Mr. Clark. It shouldn't prevent us from sitting on a board and interviewing anyone. And I think that was our concern, is the fact that it seemed like we were being pushed out of that process. And part of the process is the fact that the citizens come to our commission with input regarding who is running the department, what actions people in the department are taking. And we're kind of like the third leg of the stool. We're a part of that. If Mr. Clark doesn't need our aid, and if Mr. Clark, and it's not Mr. Clark, I should say, it's the city manager, because I think the world of Mr. Clark. I think he's an incredible human being, and I think he's done a great job with the city. So, but let's just talk in city manager. And saying that, it seems like if the city manager doesn't want our aid, if the city manager doesn't need our advice, then what do we need a commission for?
You finish up.
So I don't know if I don't know if the confidential reference check thing holds water. The other one is, if we like Mr. Lara and Mr. Clark likes Ms. Smith, and we get Ms. Smith, but for some reason we're not going to be able to work with her because she's not what we wanted. You know what? The commission doesn't work that way. First of all, we're a group of adults that you have interviewed and put on this commission. So we bring some qualities, and we bring some things to the table. The most important thing is that we're adults, and that we recognize we're not going to get our way every time or all the time. In fact, it was demonstrated clearly to me tonight. that life is a roller coaster ride, and we're just on it. But, so again, part of that argument that we couldn't deal with someone that we didn't select, I think, again, is wrong. Okay, it's just not a valid argument.
Okay, finish up, Randy.
Okay, well, okay.
See that
So,
red light there?
Yes, I had one more thing here. And on his, again, I had a bunch of notes on here. Again, I think the most important thing that I need to make clear is that we're to aid and advise and not decide. And we ultimately recognize the power is in the city manager's possession to make those decisions. And as a commission, we would stand behind any of those decisions that Mr. Clark made. But that should not preclude us from being a part of any interview or anything that has to do with any individual that is gonna head the Recreation and Parks Department.
Okay, I get what you're conveying, so
Okay.
finish up, so council can
Okay, so I just want to
discuss.
use the last for instance. When we lost our recreation director, I'm sorry.
Randy, I want you to finish up so the council can discuss this.
I am. When we lost our recreation, our last recreation director, Mr. Clark, through Steve, came to the commission and discussed how we were going to operate this department without a recreation director. Alls I'm saying is that's all we would ask for in the event you were going to hire a director, is that it come through the commission, that we participate in the discussion of it, and if we're invited to, sit on the panel and be a part of the interview. That's what we're asking for.
Thank you.
May I ask a question of Mr. Haney?
Yes,
Thank you. So.
briefly.
Yeah. So is your request that a member of the Parks and Recreation Commission sit on the interview panel? Or is your request that the entire Parks and Recreation Commission as a body in an open public meeting interview the candidates for recreation?
No, I would probably suggest that the chair of the commission, if he or she is invited to sit on that interview panel, that one of us be able to participate. Yeah, I'm not looking for an open interview of candidates and through the commission. I'm looking at through the simple process of an interview that you allow someone from the commission to be a part of it. Okay.
I have a couple of comments. Thank you, Randy. Before we, and I want to go ahead and get this out here before we go into discussion. And that is, there are two items in the proposed ordinance that I want to be real clear on my preferences. On page 5-4 and 5-6 regarding youth member, I personally would rather have our youth member as a city resident, a resident of the city of Ojai, and attend schools within the city of Ojai. I want both of them. I don't want the youth member to be a valley-wide. And on 5-5, section 2B, I would prefer to delete that entire section B, because I feel it is in conflict with our city manager form of government. That's all my comments. Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I do believe that the role of the commission should be, if there happens to be an advertised opening for a recreation manager, per se, certainly they could recommend to the city manager that they know someone, or that person, if they recommend, why don't you apply for this job? That is very reasonable. I do not think it's reasonable for a commissioner to sit on an interview panel for someone who would be applying for a full-time recreation management job. Now, most of the employees in the recreation department teach one program or teach a subject, and certainly, I don't know how those employees are hired, but I presume that the commission, the Parks and Recs Commission, certainly let people know that they might be good for that position and to apply. But I really think that the question of the city management and city council type of government would be compromised by allowing a commissioner to sit on an interview panel for that job. Yes, I don't think that's a good idea.
Councilmember Laura?
Yes, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'm pretty familiar just because coming through the Parks and Rec Commission and reading my responsibilities and duties that are currently on the municipal code is very confusing. And frankly, the current one, how it stands, to me, gives the commission a lot more involvement with staff and advising and policy and so forth, and it's a really gray area in terms of crossing with the Public Works Department as it stands. So I really think that updating the duties and responsibilities of the commissioner, the way they formulated it, I don't know if it's Steve or the commission itself, this makes sense to me. This absolutely makes sense. So I'm really happy that we did that, and it brings another question that I don't know if we need to update our other commissions' duties and responsibilities. So with that said, I really do. Now getting to the youth member, if we were, my only thing about adding residents to the high school is that's gonna limit the pool of youth just to be with the 4.2 square miles. It's not gonna include the Ojai Valley, which is fine. I just want to throw that out there that that's what we would be doing if we want. And
I understand that.
Okay. So, and the reason why I'm throwing it out there too is just because to me it doesn't make sense if we're allowing adults to be outside of the city limits if we chose to, but we're just restricting a youth, which represents our school district, and our school district goes beyond the city limits. So it's kind of conflicting to me. It's not consistent. If I hopefully I'm making myself clear. It just I want some consistency, not just some more confusing language. And that's why I think I would stay for the Ojai Valley, just for that, adding that consistency, adding that option if we want to just keep it residents and just make our whole commission just residents, not just the youth. The second thing with it being able to sit on the panel, I do understand that it does conflict with our city government, the manager and city council. I mean, there's an ordinance out there that clearly defines the role of our city manager and how we operate. And so adding a commission in the interview process, that's a conflict. But at the same time, I look at it and I see how our government's structured with the whole citizens being on top, the city council being underneath there. And there's three branches. There's a commission that works for the council. There's the city manager, and there's a city attorney. Now, if I'm looking at it as a city council, I do want the advice and recommendation from our commission. I personally thinking in the interview, whether it be one or two, because I feel like we're, as a council member, I'm getting the best advice. But it doesn't, again, it's conflicting language with the ordinance that is out there with our city manager. And my preference, personally thinking, it would be to add the language that they recommended. But I do understand that there's a conflict in the ordinance, and I would think that we'd have to look at that very closely if we were to choose their language, personally. So that's my comments. I'm fine with adding qualities, but really, a commission could add qualities, could suggest, but is that really what they're looking for unless they're in the interview process? That's my thing, so.
I'm going to make another comment and ask a question. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think I'm accurate for a change. The other commissions, Historic Preservation, Planning Commission, Arts Commission, the ordinance governing those commissions do not include.
That's correct.
This is the only one. So something that I'm very concerned about is that if we support this for one commission, then we should support it for all the commissions. And I think that would be a very, I don't think it fits with the type of government we have chosen, which is the city manager form of government.
Madam Mayor.
Anyone else?
Yes,
comments,
Madam Mayor.
please?
Yeah, we'd have to change our whole form of government. And I think it was honestly an oops in the Muni Code, and I think we need to repair the oops. It is the duty of the city manager to do the hiring of. So I think we need to strike B. And as far as outside of the city limits, in the city limits for the student, I think it's the Ojai Unified School District boundaries. If they're enrolled in an Ojai school district, high school, then they're eligible to be on the youth member. So strike B, and I support the recommendation of the amending the qualifications for the youth member.
Madam Mayor, real quick, just for clarity, I'm
Councilmember
sorry. I'm
Laura?
sorry to interrupt you, Councilmember Clapp, but just for clarity, there's also residents here that attend private schools, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
that would eliminate any type of private schools.
Oh, no, I don't think.
So yeah, that's I didn't think you meant that. That's why I just
I
asked
think
for
that
clarity.
probably in the Ojai school district boundaries, all those schools exist. So within the boundaries of the Ojai Unified School District, would I think also include those schools. But if it doesn't, I agree.
Yeah.
It could be from a
Yeah,
from
I
a
just
private
said, I
school
don't
as
know
well.
if that would
Yeah.
eliminate them, and I would
No, I
defer
wouldn't
to
wanna
the
do
city.
that. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was your intent
No,
at
it
all.
wasn't.
Now, I could agree with that, but the problem I'm having is that is not what it says here.
Now, where are we talking? Are you talking about the
The
student?
proposed ordinance, page 5-4.
Yeah.
The very bottom section, where it says section 2-4-102, that's where it discusses the youth commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
And it simply says, 7 are appointed, 1 member to be a youth commissioner shall be a full-time high school junior or senior from a, well, I'm going to read it as it's proposed without the strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
A junior or senior from the Ojai Valley.
Mm.
No more than 3 members of the commission should be not, see, it doesn't say anything about
Boundaries.
the boundaries. It doesn't, it says the youth member can be a junior or a senior from the Ojai Valley.
Madam Mayor, but I think that the school district encompasses the whole Ojai
But
Valley.
it doesn't say
No, it
that.
doesn't.
It doesn't.
It
Because
doesn't
we,
encompass Oakview.
it doesn't encompass Oakview.
Correct.
Regardless of whether it does or not, the proposed ordinance does not say that. It simply says, youth member shall be a full-time high school junior or senior from the Ojai Valley. That's all it says.
Madam Mayor, I've got 2 issues. Actually, I have 3. The first one is I find the wording of this to be very vague. I don't know what the Ojai Valley is. That's the first thing. It also says a junior or senior. It's from the Ojai Valley, junior and senior in college, junior and senior high school, because high school is stricken. So that the way this is worded is this. If you read it just as written, it could be a junior and senior from San Francisco who lives in the Ojai Valley could be appointed to that commission, because they don't have to go to high school within the Ojai Valley. So it's very vague to me. The second thing is, I don't know what it means to aid and advise the city manager on the level and composition of staffing to effectively conduct the city's recreation programs. I can understand the aid and advise the city manager or his designee, or hers, but I don't see where that extends itself to being able to be on the interview. I see here, it's aid and advise the city council and city manager, but it's kind of written in the plural, which also kind of indicates to me that it would be the entire commission that would be participating in the interviewing process. I'm not so much against somebody being on it. I think that if there's ever a commission that a chairman would have some really excellent input, it would be on Parks and Recreation. I don't think Arts Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, even the Planning Commission really doesn't work that closely with the Community Development Director. I mean, the projects come before them for approval and deliberation. They're not really, at least my experience was, we didn't really work closely with the Planning Department. But the commission really does work very closely with whomever is running the Park and Recreations Department. But I don't know what advise, aid, and advise means. I mean, the city manager is ultimately the one that has to make the decision. I guess if the city manager had a question between two and couldn't make up his or her mind, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I guess I've got a problem with the ambiguity of all of this. And if it's going to allow the chairman to be as part of the interview, then I think it needs to specifically state, and the chairman shall participate in the interview of any candidate for the Park and Recreations Director. I think it's got to say that, rather than just saying aid and advise.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, if I could maybe help with interpretation. When the staff brought this to me, I read the distinction between the current language and now as calling upon the manager when he or she is going to be hiring a senior staffer or director to consult with the commission on the type of candidate he's going to be looking for, he or she's going to look for. I think that if I was advising the park commission on, well, okay, what does this mean? Well, it means the manager should come to you as they start the recruitment process and have a discussion about the qualities and attributes and background and styles of the type of people you'd like to see as the parks director. At the beginning, it's like a scoping process. That the what it does protects, to the extent that it protects the commission, it gives them at least the political clout to say, hey, you're supposed to come and talk to us before you go hire somebody. Mm-hmm. Now, how much you want to talk to us and how much you want to listen, it doesn't say you have to listen to us. You have to come. You have to come talk to us. Right. So that's, I think, what. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Clark in terms of what he was looking for in this, but that's the type. That's how I read that. It's a meet and consult type of terminology that clearly says to the commissioners, you have a role when there's a vacancy for, particularly for, I think it says director, assistant director. You're going to have a dialogue with the manager or the executive staff on how that's going to happen, the type of people that you think they should be looking for.
And that's a reasonable interpretation of that, and I think that it could be cleaned up so that it's very specific, that it means advise prior to the hiring or whatever. But the language that appears on 5.2, which is language that came directly from the commission, the testimony from Mr. Haney's been that means participating in the interviewing. So regardless of what it says here, the people that promulgated this language say it means participating in the interviewing process.
The commission's language, yes. Well, I agree. That's yes. I believe that's what it says, is that we require the manager to allow some form of the commission. I agree. One of the reasons not comfortable with this language. It arguably says they get to hold hearings on the candidates for Parks Commission, which is, I agree with the staff that really is inconsistent with the city council manager form of government. Calling upon the manager and what the staff's recommended, that's in the draft ordinance, is only consulting with them on the process and doesn't obligate him to give a seat at the table. I mean, we've known a lot of communities where at council, city manager appointments, and sometimes even department appointments, there may be a citizens review that gets to talk to some candidates or something like that. That's step by step. That can be, the manager can choose to put that in a process, but it doesn't mandate it.
Well, and I think that at the end of this, if that's the intent, it should simply say that they're going to aid and advise the city manager, all that, prior to the hiring of that personnel.
I have a comment when you're finished. Okay. I strongly suggest that we write our ordinances in such a way that the average person can read it and have a clear and concise understanding of exactly what the powers and duties encompass. I do not want to have to seek a third party to explain it to me. Because out of our ordinance, we take our ordinances and we give the ordinance to applicants. And so as the duties and responsibilities, and I want what we hand those applicants to be clear and concise so that they understand exactly what their authority is. Because that's, like I said, this is the only commission that has such language in it, and it is because maybe its intent was more like you had in mind in the beginning, but that has evolved over time to where the Parks and Rec Commission believes it has an administrative authority or a management authority, and it does not. It is an advisory commission to this council.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Clapp?
And if we extend this authority to the Recreation Department, it would only seem appropriate to extend this authority to the Planning Commission as well, who would then participate in the hiring of a planning director.
Of course.
And et cetera, et cetera. That is not what our form of government is. The authority for hiring is in our code in the hands of the city manager. And I think we need to keep that boundary very clear. And when it starts getting muddy between each commission, and we give one commission more authority than another commission, or than the council itself, then you're starting to really get muddy and you're not really following your city government policy and procedures in your municipal code. Is that not right? Is that correct?
I understood that, yes. Any other comments, questions? Councilmember Laura?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Interesting topic.
It is.
I agree that if we give one commission authority, we probably should be thinking about giving that old kind of spiral. But frankly, as a council member, the commission does work for us. The commission does. And sometimes it's good for us council members to open up the doors a little and allow more input, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And I know that it is, if we were to change this structure of government, it's going to be another, it's going to take a long time to sort out. But I personally think it's a great thing. I think that we should, and that we should have more input. But at the same time, I respect your opinions. I just disagree that it would necessarily get muddy. If it's clear and concise and the language is just right, I think it could benefit us as a council.
Well, may I interject real quickly? It's a matter of essentially law right now, that it's the authority of the city manager. So this actually violates the law of our city to have them participate in the hiring. Number one. And number two, input, yes, to the role of the commission's input to us, not, we don't have authority to hire. I want the input. That's one reason we've started to have these joint meetings routinely, because we want to have the input and we want to have more communication about what the needs are of the community and what the commission feels that we can do to help facilitate the recreation department or whatever, and to be a better recreation department. So we're already opening up that more and more all the time. That's a separate issue from the hiring of staff. That is not in, it basically violates our city, it's not a charter, it's a city.
General law.
General law city.
No, and I agree. I'm not saying they're hiring. I'm saying they're giving input. So listen, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're going to hire. They're going to be the ultimate decision maker in hiring our head department personnel. But just a quick question to our city attorney, Joe Fletcher. So that is in the books. That's just a curious question. So it is by law that the city manager is only allowed to hire staff.
Yes, it's in our municipal code.
It's in our municipal code, but that's not a law. Could that law be changed if we chose to?
The city could choose a different form of government.
Yeah.
We can spend a lot of time talking about that. Under general law, you have a choice. The council is the 5 members of the council. That's what's in general law. It says for general law cities, and the city can choose to also adopt an ordinance adopting the council manager form of government, which the city did back in, I think, the 20s.
And so that's my point too. I know this would be an extended topic, an extended item, but let's not keep our minds closed to this is a law and it cannot be changed. And that's all I'm saying, is like, it's up for debate. And if our council really wanted to tackle it, we can, but that's not what's on the table. On the table is having input from our commissions to our city manager. And I don't see anything wrong with that, personally.
I'm going to comment again just because I'm feeling argumentative and cranky. And I disagree. Our commission is to advise the city council. That's us. Pick up the phone, call me, talk to me. It is not to micromanage our city manager form of government. As council members, we can't sit on the hiring board. That would be micromanaging. Our ordinance prohibits that.
Madam Mayor, and I fully understand that, and I think that it kind of even puts us in a kind of weird situation just thinking about it and thinking about, okay, if they're going to call us, but we really don't have any say. Rob Clark, I mean, and I hate to, since you're our current city manager, our city manager, we have no authority. The commission has no authority. Only our city manager, and it kind of, and that's the point that I'm thinking.
That is correct. Now, probably what's getting confusion is when we're bringing in the commission for administration or management.
And I understand
they
that.
They can talk to us always. That doesn't mean they should be allowed to sit on a panel that hires employees any more than the council should sit on a panel that hires employees.
And I understand that, and I totally understand that this would be a total shift of how we do things, and it's a change. But all I'm saying,
it would be impossible until we go back to our Muni Code and change our Muni Code about our city manager form of government. So you can't do this and then go back and change the laws.
And that's what I mentioned in the beginning, that if we were to include that language, I felt like we had to go back and change our form of city government.
No.
And if we were to do it,
I would not support changing this.
Yeah. Oh, no, and that's not what I'm saying.
Considering what our municipal code says.
Yeah, and that's what I said in the beginning. I absolutely agree.
Any other comments? Arguments?
Well, I'm not looking at this as though I believe that the chairman should sit on the interviewing committee. I'm really not. I don't think our code allows that. I really don't. I mean, if we can't sit on the interviewing committee, certainly a chairman of a commission can't sit there either. I don't think that that's procedurally correct, nor advisable. But I'm still not adverse to, in this, duties and powers of the commission, to aid and advise the city manager if the city manager wishes for that advice prior to hiring somebody. And I don't think that violates our municipal code. Now, if it does, maybe Mr. Fletcher can tell me, but I don't see how as a power and duty of a commission, that when asked by the city manager to aid and advise in a potential hire, I just don't see where that violates
Well, that's not what it
anything.
says either.
Actually, I think that is the intent of this
Right.
language.
That's what I think.
That's not what it
I
says.
think Mr. Fletcher could probably put some words in, that-
Mhm.
because the only time it makes sense for me to seek advice from the commission on staffing is when there's the potential to fulfill a position.
Right.
So that's when I would go to the commission and ask for their input. So.
But
so-
you can do that without creating an
Absolutely.
ordinance requiring you to do that.
Madam, we do hire the city manager,
That's right.
right? And if we don't like the performance of the city manager and the decisions the city manager is making and the people that he's hiring, and that the city's starting to deteriorate in a way we're not happy with, we have authority to replace him.
Right.
And that creates a very stable, solid, more stable organization. When you start having too many cooks, you truly do spoil the brew. And I think that I happen to like the way generalized cities are structured. I really do. I've learned to really appreciate it. When I first became a council member, I wasn't so convinced that it was really a good form of government, but now I've through the years have learned that it really makes a lot of sense.
Madam Mayor, if I could make a couple comments part of my role as an attorney, as a city attorney, is also do a lot of what-ifing and worst-case scenario analysis when you work through language and things like that. I think the greatest downside of this, and this is not to impugn the motives for the current members of the park board. However, this in an adverse political environment, I mean, there's two things. First, the cornerstone of the city council manager form of government is to depoliticize the staff, is to ensure that the city hires only qualified professional staff who are apolitical, and we don't make the staff process a political process. And if there's any department head position in any city I've ever worked in that gets as close to that line, it's the Parks Department, because of their nature of their constituency. But one of the downsides of this language, or this documenting this, is a situation in a bad political environment, in a highly charged situation involving a parks director. Someone could read this language to say it would empower the Parks Board to start holding hearings on the current park director, or start a process to hold hearings on what they want to think. They want to tell the manager what they want in a parks director, obviously being not the attributes of the incumbent. The other one was going to say what Councilmember Clapp said. You employ the city manager, and this is also a cornerstone of our form of government. You employ the city manager. You pass on to the manager the type of management style that you want to see him or her carry out. And the manager is absolutely free to consult with boards and commissions and the community, anybody else, in doing his or her job. You don't need language, and you don't need language in an ordinance that says that, and further it makes it abundantly clear that it's the manager's decision whether to seek that input. So I think deleting this language does nothing to prevent you as the council from making it clear to the manager that you'd sure like to see an inclusive process when he or she is out recruiting for senior members of the staff. And it takes away the ability, and in a very adverse political environment, for some boards or commissions to start trying to, go back to the language in their ordinance, hey, we have the right to advise, and we're going to start advising. Even though he hasn't asked for it, it doesn't say we have to wait till he asks. And I think, you don't want to have, and I said, that's not the environment we have here in Ojai today. That's not a concern with the Parks Board today, but that doesn't mean that things won't change and you don't find yourself unintentionally creating a really adverse environment that becomes very inconsistent with our form of government. So I think just merely, rather than trying to tweak this, merely simply deleting B allows you to do what you want to do, allows to make sure if the council wants to see an inclusive process in future recruitments, you can make that abundantly clear to the manager how you'd hope that process would go. And you're right, and if the manager doesn't do it the way you like to see it done, the answer is, and that's what our system says, is then you get rid of the manager, but you keep the staff as depoliticized as absolutely possible.
And Madam Mayor, one of the things that's really important to point out is that the city manager takes direction from council. And it is our responsibility to set the tone and the kind of environment we want to have in the community with our commissions and with the community proper. So I think that's a really important distinction to make, that the city manager is following the direction of the council. He's not out there rogue. All falls on our desk, that we're responsible for what he does, and that if we don't like it, then we need to act.
Madam Mayor,
Councilmember Blatz.
can I ask, not related to this paragraph, but can I ask the chairman one question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Haney.
Randy, what was the commission's thought as to why they wanted the youth member to only be from the city?
The fact that youth members are hard to come by.
No, you wanted him just from the city or outside?
No, we wanted a youth member in general.
Okay.
Gotcha. Our youth member right now, his dad sits on the planning or was on the planning commission. I think that's how he was asked to come on the commission. And the prior youth was Mrs. Hogan. Yeah, her daughter.
Yeah.
And prior to that, I couldn't tell you because I wasn't here. But no one's running to the Parks Commission looking for that job. So we just figured that the youth, because of today's communications, I mean, the youth are in contact with everyone. If you're at Villanova, you know someone at Nordhoff. If you're at Nordhoff, you know someone at, they all know each other. So we just felt that getting someone that wanted to participate in government was more important than someone actually from the school district participating in government. And then I wanted to go back to just real quickly on this thing. When this ordinance review took place, this statement was in the past ordinance. We didn't create this. We didn't write this paragraph up.
I know that.
This existed.
I know that.
So it existed under the same guise that the blower probably was instituted 44 years ago. This was probably instituted 44 years ago. So this is not of our making. What again, our intent was to be an active participant in the interview, not in the decision. So thank you.
Let's move on here. What is it we want to do?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion. Should we separate them out between the two, between the student?
Well, I personally don't even want the ordinance, quote, introduced in its current form.
If I may, Madam.
Is that, just as a question, is that because of B? If you were to eliminate B?
Because of the way it's written.
Or the entire ordinance, and how the entire ordinance is written? If B was eliminated, would that work for you? And if the language for the student representative was?
That's substantial change.
Yes, it is substantial.
So now we're talking about a different ordinance.
Right. So do we want to give direction instead of a motion?
I was just going to say, I mean, I am very comfortable making verbal amendments to this. I can write them, as long as it's as simple as changing a word or deleting a paragraph. And if you wanted to delete B and re-letter the section. That's a very easy thing to do. We would introduce it as changed.
We need to look at that.
Okay.
And I'd recommend maybe a straw vote. You know, take that issue, take a voice vote, which way you want to go, and then if you get consensus on both, then you can introduce a revised ordinance.
All right, well, then I'll hop in there. Section 2-4.102 regarding members, I would prefer to have it changed to within the Ojai Unified School District.
So if I could ask, just as we walk through, so it would read, the youth member shall be a full-time high school junior or senior attending school within or a resident within the boundaries of the Ojai.
Well, see, I wanted
Unified School
both,
District.
but let's see what the council
Well, you can do that. Right now, that's basically what it is.
No, I would like them to be a resident in the Ojai Unified School District, which does not include Oakview. They have to live here too. They can't come up from Ventura to go to Ojai Unified, which happens. So they
Okay,
have to
so I
live
would
in-
agree with
They
that.
have to live within the boundaries of the Ojai Unified School District.
Okay, live and go to school within the
Right,
boundaries. I would
But
agree with that.
they can go to one of the private schools, as long as it's within that district.
Councilmember Clapp?
Okay, so it could be, shall be a full-time high school junior or senior from within the Ojai Unified School District.
Who is a resident?
Resident
Within the
and
boundaries
within
of
the
the-
boundaries of the Ohio Unified School District?
Yeah. He can go to Ojai Valley School or
Yeah.
whatever, but as long as
Is that all
his
right?
full-time resident
Okay.
is the Ojai Unified.
Yeah,
Councilmember Blatz?
okay.
Councilmember Laura?
Okay.
All right, so it looks like we're all agreed on that, Ojai Unified School District boundaries. I would prefer to eliminate the B paragraph. I think well, Councilmember Clapp?
Yeah, eliminate it.
Aiden advised,
Councilmember
yes.
Blatz?
Yep, eliminate it.
Yes.
Councilmember Laura?
Yes.
Okay,
So-
so we all,
So, Madam Mayor, if someone want to make a motion, it would be to offer and introduce this ordinance as amended as follows. The language regarding the youth member who shall state, shall be a full-time high school junior or senior who is a resident of, within the boundaries of the Ojai Unified School District. And then section 2 will be amended to delete paragraph B and renumber the succeeding paragraphs accordingly. That could be your
so
motion.
moved.
So moved. Second.
We need the
Roll
clerk to read
call.
the title.
An ordinance of the City of Ojai amending sections 2-4.102 and 2-4.104 of the Ojai Municipal Code related to duties of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. Okay, our next item, neighborhood planning. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The city's general plan and the city's zoning code are set up so that they classify different types of land uses, but they don't draw distinctions between those land uses as they exist in neighborhoods with different types of characteristics. So for a long time, the Planning Commission has been recommending that we establish a neighborhood planning process that would allow the community to create somewhat separate standards within each neighborhood that are consistent with the time in which they were built, the nature of development that occurred at that time, and other neighborhood characteristics that might be different from portions of the city to portions of the city. As we all know, this is a massive undertaking, and it's not something that can be done all in 1 year or maybe all in 2 or 3 or 4 years, but we want to start someplace. And so we've worked with the commission to come up with a scope of work for what would be the first phase of neighborhood planning and would be the base upon which future phases are built. And this first phase is primarily focused, as presented in the draft RFP, as looking at the streets with a complete streets framework in mind, and the front portion of the yard as it relates to the street and the structure. But it stops short of defining building envelopes. So as presented, the request for proposals is to start with that. and do it on a citywide basis and lay a good framework and foundation for our various neighborhoods that we have. And we do have neighborhoods that have been previously defined through our community forest plan, and we've laid those out, but we're open to combining or, working efficiently where there are neighborhoods that are similar and that kind of thing. And then it's anticipated that this is a scope of work that could be done in a 12 to 18-month period of time. And then we would have subsequent scopes of work that might get into building envelope and that kind of, and setbacks and other things that add more detail for each of the neighborhoods. Also, I'd like to say that we've laid out this request for proposals in a somewhat flexible way because we think there'll be a lot of interest in the planning community, and that they'll bring a lot of good ideas to the table, and we don't want to lock ourselves into something that's rigid. We'd rather be flexible and hear what the proposers have to say. We're actually getting free consulting services by having who knows how many firms take their best shot at how to start neighborhood planning. The budget for this is a combination of the $30,000 that we budgeted last year and carried over to this year for neighborhood planning, and the $20,000 that we budgeted last year and carried over for visioning. And we actually think that visioning is a big component of this, but it's visioning from the neighborhoods about their neighborhoods. And so I think it will come closer to meeting what your intent was with visioning than what we had previously brought forward. So if you're in a mood to approve this evening, we've already got the stamps licked, and we're ready to send it out. And we've got a schedule that intends to get this thing kicked off this fall. And I think it'll be a very exciting process, and it'll be not just exciting for the council and the planning commission, but also for the community. So with that, I'd be glad to entertain any questions you have.
I have a comment. City Manager Clark and Community Development Director Kathleen Wohl, excellent job on the staff report. I don't have any questions.
I just have a slight correction. Correct on page 6, on page 6-52, the number 1 neighborhood is actually the Crotona and the Meadows. Number 2 neighborhood is Descanso/Taramina, according to the description. So there's just a slight error between the description and what this colored map of the city shows.
Right.
Okay. Other than that, I think it's. My other question is, gosh, there's one neighborhood that's so tiny. What is it? The very first Ojai Avenue from Rotary Park to, which number is it? It's this tiny little, Maricopa's Commercial, Cuyama, no. I guess it is that one.
That's the master tree plan report from Tom Bostrom. I think that's why that's so divvied up so small.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that's from his kind of inventory.
Oh, when he did the tree plan?
Yeah, and it's the inventory of all the trees and how many trees there are and what the coverage is. I think that's what you're, is that correct? Isn't that what this is?
Yeah.
This is from the tree inventory, right?
Yes, they did come
Yeah.
from the tree
I think
inventory.
that's
So that
confusing
the
you,
consultants are free to, so let me say this. The breakup of neighborhoods that was done in the master forestation plan was really very good. When you look at these neighborhoods, they actually are different from each other and similar within their boundaries. But the consultants would have free rein to propose something different if they felt that was
Right, yeah,
appropriate.
Area 7 is just this tiny strip. But where else could you stick it? Okay, no, where else can you stick it, exactly? Okay, I know, this is great, and it does play off Tom Bostrom's work for sure, yeah. Look how big some of them are, and look, number 18 is quite interesting, because it's mostly that new development right near Shelf Road. Most of those are fairly new houses, which is number 18.
Councilmember Laura?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I definitely agree with my colleagues. I think it's an excellent report. The only thing that I would suggest and hope is, I know we're limiting to certain to a couple or 3 items. Again, I like to push the envelope. It would be great to include some more items in there if the consulting firm thinks it's appropriate. But other than that, I think it's a great report. It's a good start. Let's get it started. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Someone like, there goes speech. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I will move to authorize the issuance of the request for proposals for Phase 1 of the neighborhood planning process.
Second.
Roll call?
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes.
This can be fun.
At this time, we'll recess the Ojai City Council and convene as the Ojai Redevelopment Successor Agency. Consent calendar.
I move to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. We'll adjourn the Ojai Redevelopment Successor Agency, reconvene as the Ojai City Council. Reports from council members?
I just have a little thought that came to mind about how things are run in a city and how votes are brought before council. And recently, a plastic bag ban was brought before the city of Ventura. And they brought it before the council when there was absences. And they ended up with a split vote. And I thought it was really interesting, and that I really liked that we brought it forward with a full council so that you had a genuine vote rather than an incomplete council. And that caused it to be a split vote, and it went down.
If we ever, I think there was one time when we did have not a complete council, and it was 2-2, but with the 2-2, the motion doesn't pass. It's not
Right,
considered
exactly.
passed.
And that's what happened. It didn't
Yeah.
pass.
So, but that is the rule. If
But, I have
you
to
go
ap-
ahead to do that,
Yeah.
and you risk the chance of it not passing.
Right. So I applaud the mayor and the city manager for making sure that there was a full council. Whenever there's a really important vote, that it should be a full council, and I think it's much more respectful to the community and to everyone involved.
Any reports from council? Congratulations, Councilmember Laura, on your trip to the league.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for representing the city.
I would be honored. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Clark?
I just had a brief question. Prior to the 4th of July, the chairs went out pretty early this year, like about a week and a half. And I had a couple of complaints, not a lot of complaints, but I'm wondering if that's something that you would like us to address in some form or fashion, or would you just like
I
us?
do. It should almost looks like blight, like.
We're getting
it
absurd
looks
with
trashy.
it.
It was almost 2 weeks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Well, I think
What can you
what
do?
we'd have to do is we'd have
Keep
to.
the chairs.
Yeah, we'd have to set a limit. We'd have to set a limit, and then we'd have to post it so that people weren't putting their chairs out and then wondering where they went.
And we
We're in the
need
city yard.
to put it on our website, and we need to begin mentioning it at council meetings, and we need to let people know that it may be convenient for them to put them out 2 weeks in advance.
It looks trashy.
That's pushing the envelope too far.
Right.
So you want to set a time on that?
So if I get, I'll put it on the agenda then.
Yeah.
And then we can debate,
Have a study.
full public debate on how long the chair should be out on Ojai Avenue.
It looks tacky having about 2 weeks.
Mr. Fletcher?
I don't care.
Sergeant Harwood?
No, ma'am.
No, I don't have anything.
How are we doing on our election? Just 2 have taken out papers?
No, 3 people have
3?
taken out papers, and actually 1 person has filed.
Are you going to tell us who the 3rd person is?
Yeah, I guess I can say that. Brandon Hanson. Paul Blatz, William Wyrick have polled. Paul Blatz has filed. I will take his papers to the county tomorrow, and we'll see if he qualifies. No.
Randy who?
Brandon Hanson.
Brandon Hanson.
Is he Ray? No, that's Hanstead. Okay, I don't know.
Hanson.
Hanson's drilling.
Yeah. And the ballot arguments can be filed as of today until
Yeah, and
July 31st.
Would you, I'm going to include all the council. If you don't want this information, speak up. But would you email the council members when papers are taken out and when they're filed and when they're qualified?
Certainly.
I would like to know what's going on. Could you give a brief report on, in front of the theater, do you have any idea how long it's going to take for the repairs?
So they were trying to get a couple lanes of traffic open this morning, but there was a AT&T fiber line that was needed repair. So we are now being told that Caltrans should have a couple lanes opened, pushed up against the north side of the road. It's not totally clear yet how long the road construction and sidewalk construction will take, so that'll be going on for a while. But we're also hoping to open the portion of the sidewalk from the library down to the deli. And those businesses have been closed for the last couple days. There's a variety of damage to the theater building itself, and so they're going to have to, but it's structurally sound in that it's not going to fall down. But there needs to be a structural wall added towards under the separation area between the Jester and the theater. They actually had done some of that work. They extended a wall partway across prior to this incident, which was a great thing because the damage could have been much more severe if that wasn't there. But they do need to extend that, which is a somewhat decent-sized engineering job. And then the interior of the theater had silt and water going up about 3.5 feet, I guess. And so the silt's been cleaned out and they're drying it out, but they've got some damaged stuff there that they've got to deal with. So I think it'll be a while. I haven't heard any estimate on how long it'll take to actually open the theater.
I mean, the Jester's been closed forever because the kitchen floor supposedly collapsed, and that was 6 months ago.
And that caused them to make this structural change to the wall that divides the two areas. And that actually protected the building from a lot of damage, but that wall needs to be, as explained to me by the building official, that wall needs to be extended further to the front of the building. And that'll give the building the strength that it needs to be reoccupied.
Whose insurance picks up what?
Well, it's a private matter, but obviously the water company has their insurance agent out there already. So.
I'm sure that our bills will reflect the.
Another
real quick question on the trees that are dying along the avenue. You mentioned that it had something to do with a gas leak.
Yeah, there was a natural gas leak that killed the trees. So there's a couple dead trees where the fortune teller is.
Right.
And
it seems to be extending. There's a lot of dead leaves further along. Is that being also caused by the gas leak? How long is that?
Well, I don't know the details, but yeah, we are watching those and I think taking some actions to try and aerate the ground. So I don't know whether they'll survive or not survive.
And this is natural gas from
a
the
gas
gas
line that was
company?
leaking.
And so you're in communication with them?
The trees are Caltrans trees, but Greg is working with Caltrans and the gas company on that, yes.
They're Caltrans trees.
Doesn't that make you feel good?
Yeah.
Mr. McClary?
And Mr. Grant may have some additional comments on that.
Just one quick thing to announce. We do have a date for our skate park workshop. We're still working on the location, but it will be Tuesday, August 19th at 7 p.m. So we'll likely either be here or at the Boyd Center. We will certainly announce that once we have that date, once we have that location known. We'll put something on the city website and issue a press release, etc. Tuesday, August 19th.
Thank you. Mr. Grant?
And very quickly, I'd like to mention, you might recall a few months ago, we were awarded a Proposition 1B Proposition 1B grant for a new trolley. It was about $195,000 with no match, and that was terrific news. And then we just got notice that we've received another grant from Prop 1B, a security grant, and that will provide new fencing across the front of the Public Works yard, including an automated gate. And that automated gate will be good news for us because when the trolley comes and goes at all hours of the weekends and late at night after the Gold Coast closes, we've had a problem sometimes with the gate not being secured properly. It's kind of a hard to handle gate. So it'll be a nice automatic gate with new fencing, and it also corrects some problems we have with the gates all the way around the whole lower public works yard, as well as installing additional cameras. So it's no match also. That's always nice.
Thank you.
Anything additional on that gas leak?
Primarily that we are trying to complete, Caltrans didn't want to really pursue the claim with the gas company, so we're trying to complete the claim for them and get them to sign it off so that we can get new trees installed, removed, and have nice sized trees reinstalled in the same area. But it's a claim with the gas company. We're not really sure how that'll go. Mm-hmm.
And what about removal of the trees that are dying?
We had some people concerned with that, and the same thing. Caltrans' opinion is to wait. They're not in a big hurry for it. It's some people thought there's a fire hazard there, and yeah, it's a bit of a mix, right? It's
They're not in a hurry to get rid of the tree that's dead, but they love to hack the other ones that are down the road up. Just
we just got over the hump of that. I'm not
Don't you
touching
love
that. Right.
Do we have anyone else out there that I can't see?
No.
Any other comments?
No.
Meeting adjourned.